Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Britton's Social Club, episode 12. Yes, I am here today, feeling kind of like crap because the time changes always suck, but I'm alive, so that's really all I got to say. Um, Hope everyone is doing well. Glad to be back. It's been a minute. Well, actually, that's not true. I did an episode last week, but I did change a little bit. If anyone wants to join in, it's open invite as always. I did put the link in the description though this time, so if anyone would like to join in and hang out for a little bit, feel free. Though of course, like I said, it's optional, so you don't have to. Don't have to. So yeah, hopefully everyone's doing well on this fine Sunday afternoon. Hopefully the time change hasn't been too bad on your guys' end, even though I'm not really fond of it at the moment. It's also November, which is crazy. So that's always fun. But yeah, so hopefully everyone's doing well. Hopefully we'll get some people in here. And sorry if I can't see the hello Ori and Chadia. How's everyone doing? Just promoting this on social media as I'm one to do. So, yeah. There you go. I have some people coming in, but like I said, it is open invite. So if anyone wants to join in, just let me know. Or go to the link in the description. Link is in the description. So there's that as well. So sorry if I can't see you guys' comments at the moment. I am busy promoting this on Discord and these other sites I'm on here. So let me just bam there, bam there. I'll just I see Tharnall. How you doing, Tharnall? Oh, we have ourselves a guest already. You know him. You love him. It's Raph. How you doing, Raph?
Heyo, how you doing, man? I am so fucking tired today.
I know, man. This new time change is
No,
kicking
no.
my ass.
I mean, we had like the time change like 2 weeks ago, so I have gotten used to it, or a week ago. So I've gotten used to it already. I'm good with that. No, I went to a concert yesterday and did not get a lot of sleep, so
Oh well,
I
that's
am, it is what it is.
still kicking. I respect that.
Yeah. Reading books, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm just chilling, bro.
That's good.
Coping with the time change because I just man.
Yeah. What's interesting is that like you have a shorter like winter time than Europe because we like I mean we changed one week earlier than the US, but you change back to like the summer time like much earlier than Europe usually does. So it's really weird that your winter is shorter than ours, I guess.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm trying to get my stuff together here.
Hey Ben.
Bend is here. Metal never
Yes,
sleeps.
that is very much true. Um, so what have you been reading this week, Britton? While you're
Well,
doing this,
I was gonna start Train Dreams by Dennis Johnson last night, but I I didn't get the chance to because my sports ball team played a bit later than I thought they would. So yeah, I'm gonna start it this evening though. I'm actually doing it as a buddy read with
nice,
some friends of mine. So it's gonna be fun.
cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
That's nice. Hey, Alicia, how you doing? Yeah, I'm currently reading The Attention Merchants by Tim Wu, which is well, obviously about advertisement and stuff like that.
I was about to say it sounds kind of Asian, to be honest. Is the author
Tim
Asian?
Wu. I think technically he's Canadian and has worked in, I think, the DOJ in America, in the US. Beyond that, yeah, the name does sound, I guess, East Asian in one way or another, but Canadian.
Okay, I think I can
Childhood friend of Cory Doctorow too.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Hello there, Alicia. How you doing? I'm doing pretty good. I'm just yeah. Also, I'm hoping to start She Rides Shotgun by Jordan Harper, which is a crime book, and also hoping to finish A Brief History of Seven Killings, because I have if I recall correctly, I have about 100 or so pages left of that book, and it'd be very nice to complete it in the month of November, so I can get to Hellfire.
Not that much has changed since last week, because last week you also said that you wanted to finish A Brief History of Seven Killings.
It's been that way for the past couple months, it's
yeah. I mean, I did read. Obviously, I did read No Life Forsaken last week, so that was fun. And yeah, I did read something else, and I already forgot what it was. Which is bad, obviously. But it was more like nonfiction stuff, so I guess it's part. It all sort of is slowly floating together. At this point, the whole research stuff for the AI video.
Still on that, the ever mythical AI video.
Well, I mean, I have started recording parts for it this week, so it is getting close to the end. Hopefully,
it's good.
I mean, it's the kind of thing that just takes a while.
Yeah, it's a thorny subject, if you will. Hello, Kale. How you doing? Oh yeah, that reminds me. I'm gonna download my friend Annie's book, his new book that just came out.
Oh, nice. Oh yeah, right. I did read A World Without Work by Daniel Susskind, which is about automation, of course. So yeah, that was the one that slipped my memory. Susskind is really interesting. He's currently doing Gresham College lectures, so you can watch him talk about the same kind of subjects for free on YouTube every couple of months. So that's something I've read. Now I need to figure out what to read next, because I'll be definitely finishing The Attention Merchants tomorrow. But I did in fact get The Buffalo Hunter, which will be my first Stephen Graham Jones book. So we'll see.
Stephen Graham Jones, he's a good writer generally. I've liked all the books I've read from him.
I've not read any of his stuff yet, because I'm not much of a horror reader in general. So but this one sounds interesting, and yeah.
I mean, it's I get that. Yeah, no. I think you've said before that you don't. I don't know if it's necessarily you don't like horror. You just don't read it all as much as you do a fantasy.
Yeah. That's the point. I have nothing against it. It's just not something that I pick up a lot.
Mac, my main man, how you doing? I've thought about seeing Springsteen, but I'm kind of done with biopics, because I was just kind of, I don't know. A lot of people were like, "Oh, you should watch Walk Hard, Britton. That film's great," and I just haven't done it yet. But yeah, Springsteen actually looked pretty good, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Springsteen. I mean, nothing against him. I just don't really like his voice all that much. The guttural bone in the UN. I can't do it.
Yeah, I'm just not interested in Springsteen. Springsteen is one of those fascinating musicians where I'm similar to Bob Dylan, right? It's the kind of musician that like the people that are fans are so insanely fans. They're like,
They like read every word like it's the Bible.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I mean, I don't get that for Taylor Swift, and I don't get it for Bruce Springsteen or Bob Dylan either. So
I think Bob Dylan's a great songwriter. I mean, you read like his lyrics, you're like, holy shit, this guy's on another fucking level. But yeah, no, there's some of his songs. His voice, I don't love. I'll just say that.
yeah. Well, I mean, speaking about like music movies, that the one that I missed because I kind of forgot to check when it was actually in theaters, that I wanted to see in theaters because you kind of need the big sound system and everything, was of course the new Spinal Tap movie. But
I still need to see the first one. I know.
You definitely need to see the first one. It is incredibly funny.
Speaking of which, we have another person in here. Got Alex. How you doing,
Hello.
Alex?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
Doing all right. We're just talking about music and yeah, no, I actually read All the Sinners Bleed from S.A. Cosby this year, and that's definitely going on my top 10 because that was a fantastic book. I actually think it might be his best book in terms of just how well crafted it is. I do think that Razorblade Tears is still probably my favorite because it's the one that had most emotional resonance for me. But I do think that All the Sinners Bleed is probably gonna. I think it's his best book he's written so far. So there you go. I haven't read King of Ashes yet. I've heard mixed things actually, which is kind of worrying because he's generally like all the books I've read from him are really good. So we'll see. I'll have to read it at some point. But anyway, enough of my filibustering. Alex, what are you up to these fine days? Or how are you coping with the time change?
The time change? I mean, it hasn't really affected me that much.
Has the time changed?
Yeah, Alex just woke up this morning like, oh, did the time change? Huh. That's weird.
Like I got an extra hour of sleep, so I'm up earlier. Okay, that's fine. But I know I on Instagram, I know you saw Britton, but I watched Blue Moon with Ethan Hawke. I really like that. I finished No Life Forsaken by Steven Erikson, and I'm
How did
making
you
my way
like it?
No Life Forsaken. I really enjoyed it. I think I always struggle with Seven Cities because I feel like I just don't like Seven Cities as much as other settings. But I think I was probably the most engaged here because there's like actually some politics involved. Not like a ton, but like Erickson is like likes to just skip that. So it's nice to get a little bit of that here because usually like I won't say anything Britain, but again like imagine like Tyrion or not Tyrion, Tywin in Game of Thrones, super important character, and then by the end of the show, you just realize, oh, he's just dead, and you're like, what? And yeah, you'd only know that if you watched a separate series to know that. So it's like, without saying who, it's a big thing. It gets mentioned in like a paragraph in book 9 or 10 of the Book of the Fallen that this character is dead, and you're like, oh, okay. And if you didn't read Esmont, you just wouldn't know.
I think it might be mentioned in Reaper's Gale.
Maybe.
I think it's like Quick Ben mentions it, and I think that's at the absolute final end of Reaper's Gale, or it might be in the prologue, or not prologue, but like the first chapters of Dust of Dreams. Either one.
Yeah, it's crazy that to me it's like such a big thing to barely mention.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, and then you read A Return of the Crimson Guard, and you find out what exactly happens. But
yeah. So it was nice for this book to kind of actually give us like a little bit more about what's going on. It's not a ton, but it is a little bit more of like the state of things, which was nice. And it was basically all new characters with the exception of a few. And I really liked all of them. So I thought for how far in Erickson is with writing in this universe, it's nice that he can still write new people, and they're all still vastly interesting. So
I did enjoy it more. Yeah, I did enjoy it more than I did The God Is Not Willing.
Oh, really? I'm kind of. I have to go back and reread it because I'm kind of mixed. I know. I really like Runt, so he's like
Yeah, yeah, Rant is cool, but
he's so
I
cute,
don't know.
such a good boy.
He is, yeah. No, I did really enjoy that. I think for me it's the opposite. I do kind of like Seven Cities much more than I do like sort of like Jenna Bacchus, and in particular that sort of like area like Silver Lake and surroundings. I just don't necessarily find it very
Right.
interesting. So you know, for me, A Return to Seven Cities was just like a really cool thing, and it felt more like old Malazan Book of the Fallen than
Yeah,
did The God Is Not Willing
God's
in
Not
a
Willing
lot of
definitely
ways.
felt like different,
Mhm.
but this felt like a return to form in a sense, but also like
Yeah.
it's not 'cause it's like all new characters. So, but
Definitely, and it gets some really cool things. Also, Steven Erickson really likes floods.
yeah, I was like, oh, we're doing Exodus in this book. Okay.
No, he's really into floods, but
Well, it's all about the
Hey,
global
there are
warming.
floods. There are a lot of floods in mythology, so I mean that kind of.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, depending
Conversation.
on what you think about, certain religious texts, but even in other mythologies, that
Yeah, yeah,
most people agree are
Well,
definitely.
all
mythologies.
that
I've
seems
read
to
my
suggest
Gilgamesh.
to me is that there was something. If everyone has the same myth, then there has to be some vein of truth to it.
Well, I mean,
So,
I think floods are. And I had a conversation with Jimmy Nuts about that on the Bridge Burners Discord. I think like floods are narratively some of the most interesting natural disasters, right? Because like they make for good storytelling because they take long. You can like depending on how those work. If it's not like a flash flood, you can slowly see the water rising and slowly see the water descending again. So they make for good storytelling in a way that, say, an earthquake doesn't necessarily make for good storytelling, or the way that fire. You like you've written one massive fire. You've kind of done the thing, right? But floods kind of
yeah,
can go in all kinds of different ways. So I think they make for good storytelling, and they're also like very much the kind of disaster that like every place on Earth has had floods.
yeah,
For example, like but storms or earthquakes are not necessarily as evenly distributed about throughout the
yeah,
world. So yeah, of course there's a vein of truth to all those like deluge stories, because like every community has had a flood at some point in
yeah,
in their
yeah.
history. So
So,
yeah.
I think also with No Life Forsaken, there again, I
Mm.
can't say anything because Britton's he's only read one book, but um,
Yeah,
there's a
I'm
new
such a
character.
noob.
Yeah, there's a new character that they introduce that he kind of talks to the one character that's trying to flood things,
Mm.
and so I thought that was really cool. Like, who is this guy? Because I've been in this universe for quite some time, and I have no idea who this guy is. And then
I have a
also,
guess.
yeah, you have a guess? Okay,
Yeah, of
maybe we could
course.
talk about it separately sometime. And then
You're talking about the character Hasten, right?
yes, yes,
Yes. Well, I'll say this. In the prologue, he's described as having long-fingered, delicate hands. That's, I
yeah.
think, a strong hint at who this could be.
Okay,
And
fair
then you
enough. I
look at
should go
what the
back and reread
term,
the prologue.
well, I mean, and then you look at what the term haste or hasten means, and then you look at like characters that have similar names that have, something like speed in there somewhere.
Mm,
You can
okay.
probably guess. Hmm?
Okay, okay. All right. It then also seemed like Erickson was like maybe with a couple new characters because he was talking about there's the one Toblakai character that
Yeah.
is like from like a million years ago or has memories from like a million years ago. So I'm like, okay, is this like a tie-in for when he finally makes the final prequel book to like introduce these
There's a
characters there?
lot of there's a
So
lot of stuff from like Kirkanis in there. I mean, we meet like
yeah.
Skill and Drow shows up.
Yeah, yeah. I was really happy that now that we're retroactively, Erickson's mentioning,
Mm.
like, stuff of Esselmont's, path to
Yeah,
descendancy stuff, little minor ways, so it's nice to get that kinda
yeah,
synergy there, so that
yeah.
made me happy.
In a lot of ways, I feel like both The God Is Not Willing and this one feel like tying up a lot of loose ends in some ways.
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
impressive. No, it's good. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen this, Alex. I'm sure you've heard about this because you're kind of a Star Wars EU aficionado. But I've actually been at my local bookshop recently. And I've noticed they've that Matthew Stover is put out a new edition of his Revenge of the Sith novelization,
Oh
which,
yes,
by
I
the
did hear.
way, is probably the best like novelization I've ever read. I should just
Oh
get
yeah,
that out of the way.
it's
I
the
really,
pros are
it's
so
actually
good
one of
in
those
that.
rare things that makes the movie better in hindsight. You're
Yes,
like,
it
"Holy
does.
crap."
It enhances the movie exponentially. So
Don't get me wrong. I still have a lot of problems with the prequel movies, but
no, yeah,
I actually said this on Twitter recently. I'm like, it's kind of hilarious how timely the prequels of Star Wars became, at least in America.
yeah.
It's
Well,
just kind of, I'll never not find that hilarious.
I think the prequels have many faults, but at the same time, you look at a lot of stuff coming out now, and it's kind of passionless and void, and it's all profit and money. And regardless of the flaws in the prequels, I can at least appreciate the fact that there was so much passion and heart put behind it. And I'll take passion and heart in an average story over like a technically better film, but it's just all about the numbers and not actually any passion behind it. So I always forgive the prequels for that.
Anyway, my
Um,
point being, I saw that he put out a new edition where he annotates,
yeah,
and I've been tempted to pick it up because I haven't read that book in a very, very long time.
you should. It's really good. Anything by Stover in the expanded universe is really good. He also wrote Shatterpoint, which focuses on Mace Windu during the Clone Wars, which is basically his Heart of Darkness in Star Wars. Um,
I kind of like the
there's
sound of that. I'll pick that up.
Yeah, that's pretty good. There's also Shadows of Mindor with it's a bit of a weird one, but it's still pretty good. And then the other one's a big investment because it's the 13th book in a 19-book series, but it's Traitor, which is the 13th book of the New Jedi Order series, and that's peak Star Wars. It's better than any of the films. But you can't really. I think it's over. I went to. There was this thing called Legends Con that happened in 2023 in Burbank, California. I went to that, and he talked about
I was
like,
about to say, hold on a minute. Empire Strikes Back is peak Star Wars. Like, get out of here.
well, you haven't read Traitor,
That's
but
true. I haven't read that.
but Stover said it was like the perfect novel for him because it's like connected to this franchise and an already running series. All the backstory, all the setup, he didn't have to worry about any of that. It was already done if you've been reading it. So all he had to do was focus on the story he wanted to tell immediately in there. And so he just got to have free reign to kind of do whatever he wanted there. And it's a beauty. That's all I can say. But it's a beautiful novel, and it will make you think. And it's changes the direction of the EU is what I'll say moving forward with those books. So
yeah. Also, my good friend I Samwise is a big fan of the Revenge of the Sith novelization. So I imagine, I hope he's heard. I hope he's heard about this. I'll have to text him later about it. But
how's the quote go from that book? One candle is enough to, and this is paraphrasing, to light the darkness, and love can ignite the stars.
The best variation on that whole, like, it's better to light a candle than curse the darkness. I found in Terry Pratchett. Sometimes it's better to light a flamethrower than curse the darkness.
I was about to say, is that the Men at Arms? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Men at Arms one. Like, yeah.
My friend Livia actually pointed me towards a book to pick up the other day because she's kind of interested in politics and fiction. Realpolitik, A History by John Bew. I saw she was reading it. I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. So I wanted to point it Raph's way. It sounds like something he might like.
What's it called?
Realpolitik, A History. It's by a guy called John Bew. Bew.
check this out. I'm not a big fan of realpolitik. Which
Well,
is so funny.
I was about to say,
It's
yeah, you're more of a stick it to the man kind of guy. I'm sure you'll probably find a lot of things to get mad about, but
it's an important concept, and it has arguably had a massive impact on like 20th century history in a lot of ways. So it's important to learn about, I think like one of the funniest things with like realpolitik is that it is a German word. Like you should always distrust concepts that have German names. That is generally a good rule of thumb. Now, the problem like that I have with realpolitik is that it's very often sort of like framed as this like, well, there's no alternatives to doing it this way. It's a framing that excludes the idea of alternatives or exploring alternatives, and goes for like a show of force in every in every situation. And I don't think that's healthy as such. This idea of like not having any alternatives, I think in general is like a very specific sort of like approach to framing everything in the world, and that I don't think is very healthy.
yeah, it's I know there have been some people who've practiced it, like Otto von Bismarck, the famous German politician and chancellor, the Iron Chancellor, if I recall correctly.
Yeah,
Fascinating man, I find he's quite fascinating to me anyway.
really
Henry
hated the
Kissinger,
Catholic Church.
yeah, also didn't like the Catholic Church. Henry Kissinger, for better or for worse, he's not very well liked out here in America, but he's dead now, so it's all right. We can talk all the shit we want now because he's dead.
Well, I mean, he was certainly a very, very influential person, and has caused a lot of suffering, globally speaking.
I'll admit, I have my problems with Christopher Hitchens, but I do think his best book is The Trial of Henry Kissinger. I think it's where his argumentative ability is at his best.
Yeah, he's fun to listen to though. Because
Yeah, he is. He is fun to listen to.
it's the accent and his charisma that really helps him.
Yeah, when you
But then you
smoke
read
and
some of the
drink,
things he says in the
when you
debate on
smoke
paper, and you're
and
like, oh, he's
when you
just kind of
smoke
complaining.
when you smoke and drank as much as he did, you'll probably have a very deep voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
It
the
also
thing is,
unfortunately led to his death from cancer.
look, there's such a thing as living healthy, and there's such a thing as living well, and they are not necessarily compatible.
Yeah. I mean, there's people who do all the right things and they die before somebody who's been smoking for 80 years. So
Yeah, I was
it's
about to
really
say,
just a luck of
sometimes
the
you just get
draw.
ran over by a car and you're just like, damn.
That too. That's it.
Another one of those wonderful light and fire Pratchett quotes from Jingo that I always love is like, give a man a fire and he's warm for a day, set him on fire and he's warm for the rest of his life.
I like that.
Which is a wonderful book. Jingo is really good. It's the second to next for you, Britton. It's the fourth City Watch book, and it's all about racism and
Oh, that's
war.
always fun.
Yeah, Ankh-Morpork is going to war with Klatch, which is sort of like the Discworld equivalent of like the Middle East, basically. So you have a
my
lot of
bad. I misquoted Matthew Stover really bad. I found it. I'll just say it real quick so I don't
sure.
butcher it for people. The dark is generous, and it is patient, and it always wins. But in the heart of its strength lies its weakness. One lone candle is enough to hold it back. Love is more than a candle. Love can ignite the stars. Is the proper quote. So
that
it
is
actually
pretty
kind of
cool.
reminds me of something W.H. Auden said. I think he was reviewing Lord of the Rings, actually, and he was talking about how what Tolkien gets right about evil is that it lacks imagination. It only cares about itself ultimately, and that's why it doesn't really succeed for very long.
That's a very sort of like specific. I think.
Heavily paraphrasing, by the way. I'm not.
No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
no.
yeah.
But like, I've read the part. And I think it's a very specific look at evil, which is very heavily influenced by Tolkien being, well, a Catholic.
Yeah.
Those damn
Ori, no,
Catholics.
Well, I
I
think
am not.
even
Yeah.
I was gonna say I
Um,
think even George Lucas comes close to that sort of mindset too, though, even though he's not like a Christian. But because like the dark side is like it's easy, it's quicker, but it ultimately fails.
Yeah. But Ori, I am not encouraging Britton to just read the Guards books, and he has said that he will read Color of Magic at some point in the near
Yeah,
future. I think.
I'm hoping to get it out of the way at some point in the near future. I don't know when. Might be early 2026. But I'm I don't want to make any promises just yet.
Eternal.
Yeah, it's but yeah, that's a good point, Alex, about George Lucas. Well, I think it's because both Lord of the Rings and Star Wars are both mythological stories more than
Yes,
anything
for sure.
else. So they kind of deal with these very, I don't want to say absolutes. Eh.
Yeah, only a
See the
Sith deals in absolutes, even though that sentence is an absolute.
Yeah, I know.
Thornell, Thornell, you are right about this specific assessment. I also one of those things is that wrestling between like the classic form of wrestling and wrestling as the scripted thing from like WWE and so forth is always confusing me because in German we have different words for those two things, right? And we just use wrestling, the English term for like WWE Hulk Hogan bullshit, um, and a different word for like the Olympic sport. My point is that every time I read about Tulkas being really good at wrestling, I imagine him having like one of those big WWE entries. And then they have Morgoth down. Tulkas enters with a steel chair and knocks him out.
That would be
Which would,
beautiful. I want to see that.
yeah. The Silmarillion as like a WWE storyline would be really interesting.
Yeah, just have like J.R.R. Tolkien like take off his like tweed suit, and it's just like he's just heavily muscled, like the Macho Man.
It's the cream.
He just starts wrestling with Sauron.
It would just be really, really funny to have like. I mean, you have all these like. And that's interesting because the storytelling in wrestling is like a very epic, larger than life kind of storytelling where characters are defined by like one thing that they have, right? The same way that like Tolkien's characters are often sort of like archetypes in that regard. So you can technically take a Tolkien story and just translate it into wrestling in one way or another.
Wrestling plus theater, ultimate 4 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a really good essay on wrestling, wrestling storytelling, by Roland Barthes of all people. Although he's talking about French wrestling, which is the same as American wrestling in that regard, like the sort of like carny sideshow entertainment form of wrestling, and he talks about wrestling and Greek tragedy because it's still Roland Barthes, right? He's a pretentious motherfucker. But it's from like 1950 something, and
who isn't pretentious in academia though? Like that's kind of a given at that point. When you're
no, I don't think so. I don't think that everyone in academia is pretentious. There's a specific
I know, I'm
form.
just being facetious.
Yeah, there's a specific pretentiousness to French theorists of the 20th century. That is very specific.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah. Okay. You mentioned
Very
that,
specific.
I'm like, oh yeah.
I mean, Roland Barthes famously is, of course, the guy who wrote the essay that all booktubers constantly mention, with most of them never having actually read the damn thing.
Death of the Author, is that it?
Yeah, that's definitely the author.
I actually saw Richard and Austin from Two to Ramble talking about it the other day, and I just was kind of watching it. I'm like, oh god, imagine if Raph watched this, he'd probably get so pissed off at it.
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, Death of the Author compared to some of
more mad that they're like memeing on the whole thing rather than
Oh no, I've read Death of the Author. I think it's a really good essay. It's worth reading, and compared to a lot of like other like French theory stuff, it is very readable. It is very accessible. It's relatively short. It is self-explanatory. And if you've ever read the actual thing, you kind of know what he's saying, and it's pretty easy. And the other one that people should really read is, of course, Michel Foucault's "What is an Author?" Because turns out that's like a question that is harder to answer than you might think.
I'll have to pick that one up.
Yeah, it's I think you can probably read it for free on the internet somewhere, because I think it was, I mean, it's old and it was published. I don't know where it's originally published, but it's accessible, I think. And he looks at, the idea like that ascribing authorship to a specific text is a relatively new thing, and is kind of tied into both copyright and, of course, responsibility. Because once you establish authorship, that means you are responsible for the thing that you've written. So it's once again about censorship and control in a lot of ways as well. So that's the typical Foucault thing, where he looks at some historical oddity and then builds a massive theory around it that may not actually hold up, but at least he's really, really good at finding weird bits of history.
I also keep pushing off Fires of Heaven because I just don't want to keep reading Wheel of Time, but I don't want to waste my money, so I have to read them. But I keep pushing it off, like, okay, but Suttree by Cormac McCarthy. I loved The Road and Blood Meridian, so I should start Suttree. And then No Life Forsaken came out, and I was like, well, I got to read that.
Suttree is
I care about that way more than Suttree. And then, so I just keep pushing it off. I watched all of Twin Peaks too, instead of reading Bars of Heaven when I had the free time. So I just keep avoiding it. But I got to get down.
I was sitting down the other day and I was like, I think it's time I finally read an actual Dom DeLillo novel, and I have not figured out which one to start. I'm leaning towards White Noise, but I'm not.
Libra's pretty good, and White Noise. Libra and White Noise.
Yeah, someone else told me that I should start with Underworld. Who knows?
And my mom keeps trying to force me to read Stephen King because Welcome to Derry just came out, and I'm like,
yeah.
But I got other things I want to read first. Like, I get it, Stephen King is like a big name. I know he has good books, but like, there's other things I want to read. The only thing I've read by him.
Book. He has one good book. That's The Gunslinger.
Yeah.
The one thing I read from him is the Tales
I'll let him be wrong, because he's right about 90% of the time. So there you go. I'll give you that, Raph.
I think like the main issue I have with Stephen King is that he is just way too American for me. Like so much, so much of what he does, especially in later books, is about evoking that sort of like, he's always about evoking like 1950s nostalgia. And in his early books, like The Gunslinger, when you have like the flashbacks to whatever the kid's name is and so forth, he's really angry at American society when he was writing The Gunslinger and like early parts of The Dark Tower. And then you go to something like 11/22/63. I hope I got the date right, because I don't care about when Kennedy got killed.
No, you got it right. You got it right.
Okay. There, it's just about pure 1950s nostalgia. And I have no nostalgia for 1950s small town America, because I'm not American. Like,
and neither do I, because I wasn't alive back then.
Yeah, but like I get that, but like up to a point, it's also like this. Yeah, we used to be a proper country kind of thing. It's like, yeah, but you're still not my country. Not that I personally believe that countries are a good idea to begin with, but
that's a whole separate thing.
So a lot of the stuff that makes Stephen King work for a lot of, in particular, American readers just isn't there for me, and then it kind of is more.
It also
about
doesn't help that I've seen most of the adaptations, and I know that the book will be different than the adaptation, but I still generally know what's going to happen, which kind of also just disinterests me from reading it.
Stephen King, for me, I think Stephen King is a good storyteller. He's not a good writer, I think. Like, he has really good ideas.
Even Stephen King would acknowledge that, Raph, that he's not probably like, that's like prose stylist.
No. Like the one time he tried prose stylings was in The Gunslinger, which is the one that I like, because I like pretentious, over the top writing.
I
It's
do
kind of
love
my
me a
thing.
good sentence.
It's kind of my thing. No, like he's a good storyteller. He comes up with like really cool ideas, and then tells them in relatively plain text usually. Plus, his stories like don't necessarily translate well to film if the film stays close to the text, which is why The Shining works as a movie, and the TV adaptation that King was involved in sucks because
Yeah.
different languages, and Stephen King doesn't necessarily understand the language of film, I think.
And then, there's also the big turnoff because I know about the ending to it. And I'm like, you know
Yeah.
what? I think the movie did the right thing. I think the movie's better because it didn't include the last 6 pages of the book. It's wild that made that through. I can't get over that.
I think
It's
I think
crazy.
it's I'm fine with the fact that it exists in that way. Because up to a point it's sort of like, I mean, it's fiction. You can
Yeah.
put that stuff into writing, and maybe
Yeah.
it's good that people put that kind of stuff into writing so other people can think about it, and so forth, right? Like, also,
Yeah.
it's book writing, and you can do things in text that you can't get away with in film because graphic depictions are a whole nother thing. But you can write that stuff down, and you can get away with that. So
Yeah.
I'm fine with it existing. Is it my favorite thing to read? No.
Yeah.
I think what King's really
Nobody would think
good
it's
at
their
is
favorite thing to read.
I think what King's really good at is like getting to the heart of the matter, if that makes sense. He's really good at
Yeah.
articulating how
Yeah.
things feel,
Mhm.
in a sense, and very few writers can do that as well as he
Yeah.
can. Anyway, I know writing in general, storytelling in general, is kind of in the emotions business, but you know,
I think it's interesting to see what kind of techniques different writers use that are sort of like their unique voice. And I think like I finally like fully realized, for example, what Stephen Erickson's specific thing is. The same way that when I did like my video on Shadow Ticket, is like when trying to explain what Thomas Pynchon's specific style of writing is, that weird sort of like switching between scenes where you don't necessarily, where you start in one scene and you end up in a different scene because he kind of switches basically mid sort of like train of thought to like a memory, and then you're suddenly in that other scene. That's a very specific technique that Pynchon uses. And Erickson is someone who uses a very specific approach to inner monologue that is very much more like actual narration, more like actual dialogue than just like thoughts that when you have like a lot of other writers doing like sort of like giving you like the inner view of a character. It's rarely this sort of like narrative. It's more like Erickson's inner monologues often feel like a first person voiceover in a lot of ways, and I think that is an interesting specific choice that makes Erickson stick out in fantasy, because it's definitely more like a literary fiction, postmodern literary fiction kind of
Oh, definitely.
approach to writing.
well, after I read these two books, Train Dreams and She Rides
Mhm.
Shotgun, I am probably going to start Vineland.
Deadhouse Gates.
No.
Vineland, which is basically Thomas Pynchon's Deadhouse Gates. That is very much a claim that I just made up. It has nothing to do with that.
Well, from the reviews I've read, I've heard it's his book where he's all pissed off at the 60s not working out.
In Vineland, he's mostly pissed off at Reagan and Nixon, but
Yes, that too.
understandably so.
So, Raph, I would like to know, is there actually a Christmas Adventurers Club in Vineland? Because that would just be
No.
great if there's a literal group called the Christmas Adventurers Club.
It's been like a decade since I read Vineland, and I don't think there was a Christmas Adventurers Club thing.
Damn.
There
That
was
sucks.
there was some scenes on an airplane. There's of course a lot of kazoo playing, because in all of Thomas Pynchon's novels, someone is playing a kazoo at some point for whatever reason. I think like there's a lot of like airplane weird stuff with airplanes appearing and disappearing in Vineland. But it's, as I said, it's been years, and Thomas Pynchon novels are so often about like weird in that there's like a lot of stuff happening that doesn't actually really matter, because what he's after is more like a vibe. and sometimes you just forget like scenes where like, was that also in there or not, because it's just so over the top ridiculous.
Yeah, it was kind of the thing I would kind of struggle with Inherent Vice, because there was kind of a lot of random, like word play and games and stuff, and you're like, what? And then he's like, oh, there's like a heroin shipment, and you're like, oh yeah, that's the plot. That's the plot. And then like no one can make up their minds on which Pinchon book is the easiest to read. People are like, oh, it's Inherent Vice. No, it's Vineland. Oh wait, it's The Crying of Lot 49. I'm just like, I don't know.
Like I feel like Inherent Vice is still one of the most straightforward and accessible ones. And obviously the whole like heroin shipment thing is, it's the 60s, it's Vietnam. What's the CIA doing but actually importing heroin from South Asia, right? Asia at the time, right? So it's always based on sort of something, but he's more after sort of like a specific sort of like, with Inherent Vice, it's that moment where like the hippie 1960s sort of counterculture shifted into paranoia, and like that shift is sort of like what Inherent Vice is about. It's like how you slowly find out how the dream has been sold, and now you're stuck with Nixon and property developers taking over all the cool places and gentrifying them and selling hard drugs instead of just dope to people and so forth. And that's sort of like what Inherent Vice was about. And I like it. But I generally like Thomas Pynchon because he's.
I want to read Inherent Vice again, because I don't know if I gave it the proper try that I feel it deserves. But I haven't gotten to it yet because all those other damn books.
Damn books in life.
I know. It's ridiculous. I wish I was Steve Donahue. I could just sit around and read books all day, like as a job. That would be great. But unfortunately, I have not reached that level.
All you gotta do, you gotta save up, and then go to New Zealand, get a hotel, and then just go walk to the Shire, and then just read for like hours in the Shire.
Go to the Hobbiton, yeah.
Yeah, just to read.
Britain, that level is just called old age.
Oh my god.
If you make it. People are always like, you're so young. You're only 24. You're only 25.
I
know.
But
it's like, you say that, but that's assuming you make it to like 90. You could get hit by a car tomorrow. This could be the peak of your life right now.
This could be, but like my point is that having the time to read all day is something that you can get either if you're like independently wealthy, which who is these days, or if you're like like me, or if you are which means unemployed and on disability, or if you are retired. And in Steve's case, I think he was a teacher before, like having a job that forces you to read anyway.
Yeah, it's yeah, and there's like all these other books I want to go read as well. It's like I have a hard time like finding time to reread.
See, this is where being a vampire would be like a good thing.
Yeah,
then it's like I got the time to read the books I want to read. I'll die when I've read what I'm satisfied with.
Yeah.
I'll walk outside in the sun when I'm good and ready.
Yeah, all those like mopey vampires and like Anne Rice, just go read books, man. Like I don't solve your problems.
Yeah, play all the video games you didn't get to play.
Like a new like Anne Rice like reboot where everyone is just on Book Talk. All the vampires are Book Talkers.
I actually did have an idea for a story of like a guy who meets like a vampire, and instead of just like sucking blood and doing like sinister stuff, he's just hanging out in bookstores all day.
Romantic comedy.
I still need to read that vampire short story by Fritz Leiber. The Girl with the Hungry Eyes.
Colton's here, and he says to Raph, he read The True Hallucinations by Terrence McKenna, which is like Grant Morrison levels of weirdness. I probably should not say that because I haven't actually read anything from Terrence McKenna, but I do know of him. I know he's kind of in that Timothy Leary kind of, yo guys, drugs are actually pretty cool. Can
Infinite jest
lead
as a
to
word with
higher
you.
understanding, man. You know. And then Raph is probably gonna like rip into me in a few minutes about how wrong I am, but that's kind of the vibe I get from what I've read about like Terrence McKenna.
Terrence McKenna is interesting. He's wrong, but he's wrong in an interesting way.
Or like Alan Watts, you know, like Alan Watts is kind of in there. I don't know if he did drugs though.
And for me, Terrence McKenna is more in that level, like, you know, Robert Graves' The White Goddess is sort of like that. The people that come up with like really weird sort of like theory that explains everything and is based on vibes and sometimes drugs.
Yeah.
And you know, the point is those are really cool, like, theories of everything, and we need those, not because they actually explain the world, but they are really good for writers afterwards. Like, you look at like The White Goddess or Golden Bough or Margaret Murray's Witchcraft in Western Europe. They have fueled so much world building and so many writers since then, and that stuff is important. Or like what's his face? I keep forgetting the name. The
Joe Rogan.
The origins of the origins of consciousness in the breakdown of the bicameral mind. Julian Jaynes, that's his name. It's one of those ridiculously weird books about the idea that our brain structure changed at some point, which is, you know, the breakdown of that bicameral mind, where people that have like, where the left hemisphere and the right brain hemisphere are not fully connected, that basically bicamerality, and once that stopped, we could like think in a different way, and that is sort of like where consciousness comes from, according to Julian Jaynes. Now, is this correct? Very, very, very likely no, because it's also like the kind of story that is like theory that is hard to prove. Jaynes, however, was an actual academic psychologist in the 60s and 70s, all of that kind of stuff. And it is a book that has impacted, like, it's at the base of a lot of the stuff that is going on in Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. It's something that Stephen Erickson has mentioned as a book that impacted him a lot. It's something that has arguably influenced Terry Pratchett when he was writing Small Gods. It's a book that has, because the theory is so cool, it has inspired a lot of writers. And I think there's a long list of like slightly whack big theories that have driven art and entertainment in a way that they have not necessarily driven science. And I think they're necessary for that.
For sure. Consciousness is such a peculiar thing in of itself. I mean,
yeah, we
the
don't know
whole thing
what
we
it
do
is.
on YouTube is talking about books, which is entirely reliant upon the conscious to even enjoy. And it's you know, such a vast conversation of itself. I mean, the last book by Stephen Erickson that just came out, you know, he was talking a lot about, you know, I mean, a lot of his books deal with faith and stuff, and
Yeah.
you know, but it's interesting just because like we can do a scientific study on the brain, and you can like, I can know what Raph is like feeling, but I can't know exactly what he's thinking. We have no like scientific way to do that at this time, you know. So is there a separate spot apart from the brain itself that is you, or is it just we haven't discovered it yet? It's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Consciousness is really interesting. I've been reading a lot of that stuff recently for the AI video once again, because, you know, that you have to have a very specific idea of intelligence and consciousness to believe that superintelligence is a possible thing.
You know, I don't really want to use drugs very much, but if there is a type of drug I would be open to using, it would be a type of hallucinogen. So that's a good point there, Colton. I don't know if I'd reach a higher understanding through drugs. I think a lot of that's probably nonsense, but I am quite fascinated.
No, I mean, you could certainly DM me sometime. I'm no scientist. As far as I'm aware, there's no way for people to exactly know what I'm thinking at any given moment. They can know the feelings that I'm having associated with it, but I'd be curious to hear what you're talking about. But I have not seen it.
No, there's no such thing because we don't understand how that works. We obviously we can measure which regions of the brain are active, and we can sort of map those kind of things. But like actual individual thoughts, no way, because we don't actually understand how that stuff works because we don't understand consciousness.
Yeah.
Well, I
It's one of the
actually was
biggest mysteries in science is the consciousness.
Well, Colton says I grow my own magic mushrooms. I'm trying to figure out when I can sneak in my next Robert McCammon, because I read Speaks the Nightbird last year for Halloween, and that was a really, really good book. And I know Colton's a big McCammon fan. Now, Raph, I know you're kind of meh on Stephen King, but I know Robert.
I knew you would bring up Stephen King because everyone brings up King when they talk about McCammon.
I do think McCammon is a better prose stylist than Stephen King. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's also just a good book. I mean, it's not super like nostalgic over America, but like it is.
Have you read
colonial.
The Dark Tower, Britton?
Bro, Dark Tower's crazy, and I love it.
Well, so I would ask, is it worth it? Because it's like the only thing that I'm really interested in.
The Gunslinger is really good. Is really good. The second book, it's a drawing of the three, is kind of okay. The Wastelands is the third one. That is really not that interesting, and I still have to progress beyond that. I've heard the Fourth Lang Wizard in Glass is once again really good, because it's more about like Roland's past and shit. So that's probably much more fun. Also, it's on the train, and train's good.
I think it's worth it. I actually empathize with Malazan fans as a Dark Tower guy because, like, man, because I mean, Gunslinger is kind of a hard sell. Same thing with the Gardens of the Moon. So I'm like, hey, you know what? I get it. I get it now.
But you think Dark Tower's worth it?
I mean, I personally do. Yeah, I really like how it reimagines the Robert Browning poem. Child Roll into the Dark Tower came, which is great. It's also just Stephen King going just absolutely batshit insane in a fantasy, but it's kind of like not.
All I know is it's like the multiverse of Stephen King's stuff.
And like I've never really seen like a true like American epic fantasy before.
Yeah,
and like that's the closest thing that really comes to like an American, because like a lot of the fantasy books are pulled from like other history.
Yeah,
and Stephen King's like, nah, fuck that. Like, let's do like an American epic,
Yeah, and I do very much appreciate what he's doing there with like creating like an American epic that is rooted in what little like American folklore you already have, and kind of go from there and build his own.
Though
thing
it
there.
is there is like references like King Arthur as well, because the Gunslingers are basically the Knights of the Round Table, just with guns. It's really fascinating how he plays with it.
I mean, it kind of makes sense because, like this specific form of the United States is, of course, heavily influenced by British mythology already. So dragging in King Arthur makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, though Stephen King's like, let's get me in there, especially towards the latter books. Oh my god, he just goes full like. I don't think he was on drugs by the time Song of Susanna came out, but. There's times you're like, damn, was he hitting the coke again?
Yeah.
Like, isn't that like the general argument that Stephen King was a better writer when he was on coke, which is obviously bad for his health, but possibly good for his fiction?
Well, you did say earlier, Raph, sometimes it's better to live well than to live long.
Full circle. The joke has come.
It's full circle, yeah.
Yeah. I guess on that note, I'm gonna get myself another beer.
I read the Talisman because my mom forced me to. So that was a little bit of like a portal fantasy, and there's a cool little wolf guy.
That's actually one of the few King books I haven't read, believe it or not. Because I went on a huge King bender like back in good lord, when was that? Like 2017, 2016, and I was like, oh man, like I was just eating it up, and I read the whole Dark Tower series, and I like to call the Dark Tower like fantasy's like kooky uncle, because it's basically what it is. It's like that uncle who shows up during Christmas and has all the like wildest stories. It's like
Yeah.
my cousin John. Like my cousin John has lived a very interesting life and is like traveled around and has a lot of crazy stories. That's basically what the Dark Tower is.
All right.
All right. I have
What's on the long TBR?
I know. Yeah, I know, right?
to use regular beards like a peasant.
I like the working class thing you got going there, Ref. You're just like, yeah, you got me ranting on the internet. No, it's yeah, it's I actually just recently, because I had a Amazon snafu this last week. Amazon was like, "Well, just the book that you ordered, it's gonna pull a bit of a disappearing act." I'm just like, "Well, that's bullshit. I want my money back." And they're like, "Oh, you have to
Yeah.
give it to Whole Foods." I'm like, "Well, fuck that." I'm still figuring that
Why?
out. But my dad was very kind enough to. I'll just pull it out real quick. Get the book I ordered back called My Dark Places by James Elroy.
Mm.
You know. So, thank you, Dad. If he watches this, I imagine he won't, but if he does, I appreciate it. I also finally recorded my 150th episode of Britton's Hanging Hour, which took an obscene amount of time to put together because one, the first person I had in mind for 150 never answered any of my emails, which pissed me off to no end. And then I got another person to do it, and he agreed, and we finally got it together. And I'm like, oh, thank you.
You know, it took me like maybe an hour to sit down. I got most of them. I'm still missing a few, which really pissed me off. But I was like, man, Britton never made like a playlist for all these, so I just went ahead and did it. And I'm still missing a couple, but I got most of
That
them in
is
there.
an interesting point, Britton, because they are regular. What I've learned from YouTube in one of the training sessions that they sometimes allow me in, is that if you also put them, put all of your Hangout Hour ones, podcasts, in a podcast playlist and mark it as a podcast playlist, it then also shows up in Google's podcast Play Store. So you get more views, like listens on that side of things, and you get like an
it's so weird how that works, because I have a couple of lists that are placed as podcasts, like State of Science Fiction, which I guess technically is a podcast, but I don't really see it
you can
that
do
way.
whatever, you can mark whatever you want
And
as
like
podcasts.
But like my actual podcast, because I actually have I do have a list of, I think, somewhere. I don't know where it's at the moment, but I do have a list of it, but it's just kind of anyway.
I try to do I try to have as little as possible to do with like actual stuff on YouTube, because it's so confusing and so frustrating, and it just like drives me insane.
Apparently Colton is not anywhere near Virginia, so he's further south. You know, another author I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. I don't know if you would like him, but I think I'm curious what you would think of him, because he has a very similar kind of. I have the kind of writers, kind of list of writers. There's like I call it the storyteller writer, which is, you know, like a Stephen King or a you know, or he's at least the first one to pop to my mind, or like, you know, Charles Portis. And then there's like the stylist, and there's someone like, you know, like Vladimir Nabokov or God damn it. Vladimir Nabokov is the one that pops in my mind anyway. And then there's like the weird writers who can do both, like Cormac McCarthy. I'm but to the list, I am curious what you would think of someone like Joe Lansdale, who because he's very like, he's a very much in that kind of storyteller vein of writer. Like I don't think his prose would blow you away or anything, but man, can that dude spinning.
I have not read any Lansdale yet. I'm obviously aware of it, of him, but you know, haven't read him. I think what I find interesting about that is that specific sort of like storyteller, I think, is a very, very American approach to writing, to literature in a lot of ways, where like German literature is very different, and British literature, I think, is also different in like not just the topics that it deals with, like, because obviously a lot of like literature deals with like the country that an author is from, if they don't write explicitly like fantasy or science fiction or whatever, right? But like American
Or
fiction that
Mervyn
is set
Peake would
in
be another example for me on like the stylist writing, which by
Mervyn
the
Peake,
way,
yeah.
it's not like this isn't like an official thing. This is just kind of how I put
Yeah.
writers.
Yeah.
And then again, there's those like weird writers who can kind of just do whatever they want because they're just that good. Like, like a Neil Gaiman or a Cormac McCarthy or
Yeah.
whatever. Or who's a non-problematic writer I can bring up in this regard.
So we're the most talented or the most
I
problematic.
I know a lot of people say that about Steven Erikson. So you know what? I'll just go with Steven Erikson.
Like I said, the first book is not the best place to determine that. But yeah, you keep going, and I think you'll think so.
Steven Erikson can do a lot of like weird things. Like, I mean, he's written Star Trek parodies.
Yes.
Or like you know what? I'd say Penchon is a good example of the stylist. I don't know if
Pynchon is definitely like a stylist. Like, he's got a very specific, strong voice that you'll recognize. Like, after you've read like one Pynchon, you will recognize Pynchon after like a couple of sentences and go, yeah, this is Pynchon. And I would argue that it's similar with Steven Erikson writing as Steven Erikson. I haven't read any of his more like slightly magical realism kind of fiction novels, literary fiction novels that he published under his actual name, Steve London. I haven't read any of those, so I don't know how his style, if there's like a difference in style.
Well, if I did shrooms, that would be an experience. I'll just say that.
Certainly.
It would be something that happened. I know. I want to read Edge of Dark Water. I just haven't got that. That's the one. That's the like one in like East Texas, right? Like that's a lot of his books. Whatever. I don't freaking know.
Yeah, and then you got like the ever pull of like I'm trying to read more classic things and more literary things, but then also there's still that pull from when you listen to all the YouTubers and like, oh yeah, Realm of the Elderlings. That's been talked about to death, but at the same time, I haven't gotten to it yet, but sounds
I think
kind of
another
cool.
like good example of like the storyteller kind of writer is like Larry McMurtry. You know, I don't know if you guys have read Lonesome Dove, but like
I have not.
He can
tells
sling
me
a
about
sentence together, but that's not like the thing he's going for when he writes a book.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what is interesting about this idea of like the storyteller. And this is me theorizing, but making up a big theory right now, is that one of the reasons why the storyteller approach to fiction writing is so big in American literature is tied to that specific form of anti-intellectualism that is so much part of America, right? This idea of like that real Americanness, especially as sort of like something developed in contrast to like the East Coast and elites in the East Coast. Not using this as a anti-Semitic dog whistle or anything of the sort. It's just that you had like, once the westward expansion like started, right? You have a lot of people that wanted to.
That's so on brand. It's the German making anti-Semitic dog whistling.
Yeah. But what you see is that like with that move west, with the westward expansion of America, right? Like white, mostly English speaking Americans, right? You have this need to sort of like differentiate yourself from the original like New England kind of colonies, right? You have, I mean, it's your Andrew Jackson hard cider and log cabin kind of weird sort of thing, and that sort of like image of the American as this I don't want to call it folksy, but like there is a specific element to that. There's a weird kind of form of stoicism in there, and it's also this specific form of storytelling, I think, is sort of built into that aspect. Whereas, someone like Thomas Pynchon, obviously, very different approach, but he's a New Yorker, right? He's East Coast elite in that regard. Same with someone like what's his face, fucking David Foster Wallace, who I keep forgetting where he was from because I'm not that interested in. But I like, once again, like the kind of person who goes for like Ivy.
I don't know.
What?
I'm not an expert on David Foster Wallace. I think he was
No, but
really
it's
working
it's
for
it's
something.
it's the sort of like you go through like Ivy League schooling and so forth. That's the one side that you have, and you have the people like Cormac McCarthy who are like storytellers and
I don't know if I'd call or at least not strictly so. There's some of his
McCarthy
books
is different, of course. Like he can do both.
like Suttree is like pure is him in like pure stylist mode.
Yeah.
Even Blood Meridian as well. Even though I think there is incidents in that book. Yeah, no, what I'm saying about McMurtry is I don't think prose is where like his focus is. Like he's very much like again kind of in that like kind of storyteller type of writer. I'm trying to think of a non-American who falls into this, but I don't know. Maybe Raph's onto something. This is kind of an American thing.
It's a very specific sort of like understanding of what American storytelling is, right? It's the round the campfire, sitting around the campfire. Everyone is probably smoking Marlboros, kind of thing.
Cowboying.
Interesting thing that I just learned today from reading The Attention Merchants. Marlboro started out as a cigarette brand that was specifically marketed to women. And the whole like Marlboro Man cowboy kind of thing is a rebranding they did in like the 50s.
Huh. Interesting.
Which absolutely worked and turned it to like one of the top selling cigarette brands. Before that, it was just like not very big at all. Yeah, interesting stuff. Because obviously, as I said, like The Attention Merchants is about like advertisement and in different forms of media. So cigarette marketing is, of course, a big deal in that regard. Good book. Highly recommend it.
About like a TV show that like people
Yes.
like can't stop watching because I don't know. It's just
yes, it's a movie. It's a film.
It's like a lotus. It's like a lotus eater.
Infinite Jest is about a lot of things, but at its core is this film that watching so they die. It's David Foster Wallace taking amusing ourselves to death and turning it into like a literal
very
thing in
topical
his
for
book.
today, actually. But he thought it was gonna be like a videotape that we couldn't get off of, but instead it's our
It's a videotape.
phones, which is even worse. So
You know what?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a videotape in that book. Obviously, the book is about all kinds of other things around
Yeah.
it. It's about drug addiction and overcoming drug addiction, which is, I think, the strongest parts of Infinite Jest are the stuff around what's his face in the halfway house guy, Bim. Is that his face? This name? Anyway, those I think are really, really strong about like how to
I'd say
overcome
Sutree's a
addiction.
lot like that though, with in terms of like the plot kind of being everything and anything. Like the plot just kind of there is no plot right now. Like a bunch of things are just kind of happening in Suttree where I'm at, and there's the only constant is Suttree. That's it. Somebody had sex with watermelons in that book. That was
Oh, that's
funny.
hilarious. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
That's one of my favorite parts.
I
Which,
was
by
like,
the
what
way,
am
is
I
not a
reading?
big spoiler. That happens like the first 50 pages. So
Oh yeah. He goes to prison. Very small section of the book.
yeah. Oh, that's not even the craziest thing that Harrogate gets up to in that book.
Yep. He just met up with him where I'm at, so back up with him since prison.
Yeah, right, Demidrag. That's the point. Is like he's like Infinite Jest is really strong when it's about different forms of addiction, like the stuff about him trying to quit smoking weed is definitely one of those. The whole like halfway house part is one of them. Those are really, really strong. Plus, of course, the wheelchair assassins are just like really good as a concept. The Quebecois separatist wheelchair assassins.
Let me think. Maybe Robert Louis Stevenson's a good example of the storyteller who is an American. I don't know.
Yeah, he might be.
I'm probably
Stevenson
overthinking about this, and people could probably nitpick my clarifications all day. I'm just saying this is how I understand it.
Ooh, for another stylist, Herman Melville.
Oh yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Who is also still like Melville? I think is probably sort of like
I want to read
Similar.
Moby Dick again at some point. I just haven't really.
Such a good book.
Same.
It's such a good book. But like
I read it when I
think-
was a kid. I had a weird
Yeah.
journey with Moby Dick. So I read it when I was a kid. I read like the illustrated classics edition of it, and just
Yeah.
seeing some images, and I'm like, what the hell is this? You know? And then I tried to read it again when I was a teenager, and I'm like, what the hell is this in a different way?
Yeah.
I haven't read it since then.
That was basically me in middle school. I was like, this sucks. I'm so bored.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
But then I'm like, I've become a better reader since then. So I'm like, I need to retry it now that I'm an adult because I probably won't hate it.
I read it as a kid, like a really young kid, like an abbreviated, like for kids version in German, like translation into German, abbreviated for kids, which is already a weird thing. But
Yeah.
the whole idea is like, well, it's on a ship. Ships are clearly like adventure stuff, so kids like adventures, right? and I did kind of like it then, and then I read it like as like my first year at uni, like because I wanted to read it again, and I was like 19, I guess. And 19 in English for the first time, and I was like, wait, this story is very different from what I remember from my kids' version. It's a lot
so
more.
many explanations on so many freaking explanations about whales. You're just like, oh my god.
I love
But
Wuthering Heights, but I understand why you might have hated it at first.
Bro, I was talking with my friend Aaron the other day about Dracula. Yeah, maybe Bram Stoker's a good example. Another good example is I don't know. Again, this isn't like an objective thing. This is just how I understand it. But yeah, I was talking with him about Dracula the other day. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of a wild book. It's a classic like creepy vampire story, but it's also like Bram Stoker going like, oh wow, women like sex. That's weird, you know. Whoa! Like it's like
they
a
clearly
profound
like
revelation.
sex with like weird foreigners. That's dangerous.
Yeah, that too. It's like what?
It's a lot. But I did really like the Audible audiobook version they have is really good because they have like multiple narrators, which kind of makes sense with like Dracula. If you give like each like diary and letter writer their own like narrator, you can do that really, really easily, right? And it also has Tim Curry is narrating Dr. Seward's diaries, so that is just like really good.
I mean, the moment Tim Curry joins something, it's going to be automatically increased a little bit.
yeah, and Tim Curry has like
You can put him in
very
something
much-
as god awful as
Have a lovely day.
You can put him in something as unintentionally hilarious as Congo, and he'll be magnificent in it.
He definitely is, but he also is like just like really good at doing like the psychologist, the over the top like analytical psychologist with like his poshest English that he can get together. It's just like really good.
Yeah, but you know, again, it's not like it's not yeah, it's just, you know, something I've noticed in my time as a reader. I'm like, oh, well, there are these kind of different ways of writing, which I know there's probably going to be some people who are like, wow, Britton, that's a profound revelation. But I mean, you know.
No, it is really interesting, you know, because I've been stuck on sci-fi fantasy for a good couple of years now, and I think this is the first year where I've really tried to expand my reading, and even just in that, like fantasy and sci-fi, they've got different writing styles and stuff too. I mean, look at Erickson to like the Wheel of Time. That's not so low
You
blow,
know,
but
hey, if you
you
guys
know,
want to talk shit about Wheel of Time, like I'm totally fine with that because I don't really want to read Wheel of Time. I've not read it, and I don't know if I want to go read it because
I'm gonna read.
Wheel
I
of
gotta
Time-
finish it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's the things like
But-
you buy all of them and go like, well, clearly they're big. I'm gonna read them, and then you start.
Daniel
reading them,
Green
and
said
fuck,
they're
I-
phenomenal, so you know, made like a 5-hour
just-
video on it, so it's gotta be worth something.
I think
I-
somebody told. I think it was actually Alex who told me this, but he's like, yeah, in the book they're kind of like, oh no, the women are being kind of evil because they're women, I guess. I'm just like, oh
Well, it's
no.
not like they're evil. It's like because people keep telling me like, oh my gosh, this is like these books are so like equal with men and women being like super
the
powerful.
idea
and
that
awesome,
yeah, it's bullshit. The idea that
but they're all
Robert
just kind of
Jordan has
stereotype of a woman.
has strong female characters is ridiculous, because what happens is you have women that are uppity and mouthy and so forth, and then always get into fucking trouble where dudes have to save them. Every single fucking time Nynaeve decides to do something, and then fucking Rand or Matt or Perrin have to show up and save them. It's so fucking annoying, because that's not how you write strong female characters.
But even beyond that, it's like when he's trying to make them be like strong and like smart, you know,
Yeah.
against the men, it's like it just kind of comes off as them being mean. And that's not smart and strong. It's just annoying. It's like, you know, like there are ways to do that and make that work. And I just don't feel they just feel like stereotypes of like what's like the bare bones of what you think like a strong woman would be or would say. And
Yeah.
so, but I haven't read the whole thing, so I can't speak completely on it. I'm just saying.
But you've read some of it, so you can speak
I've
a
read
little.
4 books. I feel like I should love these characters by now, or at least like them, and they're all fine. I don't have strong opinions about any of them. I like Matt the most, I guess. That's
Matt
about it so
is
far.
interesting in what Jordan does with Matt on like the sort of like mythology level.
No.
And
I just like that he's really lucky, and that's like his power so far.
he is lucky. Oh yeah, you finished book 4. Is book
I'll be
4
right
where
back.
he
I'm gonna get something to drink real quick.
is big 4 book 4 is the one where he gets his lance, right?
I believe so. Yeah, it's the first time he starts like actually being important, because before that he's kind of just around in the books. That's the first one
Has
where he
he
has like an arc.
has he had his big accident already? Well, not accident, but you know what I mean. If you've read it, I
Book
don't want to
4.
spoil anything.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry,
Yeah,
it's been like 3 months or 4 months since I read
yeah.
it, but yeah.
Okay. The thing is, with that spear, with that lance spear, whatever, and the thing happening to him, he basically becomes Odin.
Okay. That's interesting. I look forward to seeing that development. That's like the one thing I'm looking forward to, is seeing what happens with him. So
Which is kind of like the thing that he do, like, because I mean, obviously he's in that place and he gets like the weird like knowledge of the future and stuff like that. That is sort of like the whole like Odin hanging himself on the tree for like what's it, like 6 nights and 6 days or whatever it was, to gain knowledge and stuff, and obviously doing the Odin thing where you lose an eye and shit. So now that I found really interesting, and like, there are good bits in
Oh
the
yeah, absolutely.
Empire.
I think he does great world building, and you know the world's interesting, and like the
The
magic's interesting, and the lore's
Yeah,
interesting. The thing that just doesn't get me, that should get me, I think, on a first read. Everybody's like a reread's incredible. It's like, well, that's great, but I feel like I should be enjoying my time on a first read, and the characters in the first time read are just kind of whatever, and none of them really stand out that much. And I get it; it's kind of like this subtle progression, because everybody claims that by the end of the series, you know, they've all gone through this massive change.
no.
But as right now, it just kind of feels like a cartoon where like they kind of have their base same character in every story, and then you know they go through a different adventure, but they're all kind of the same person. I
The
mean,
first book,
Rand's
the
changed a
first,
little
yeah,
bit. Like
yeah,
he's a little bit more responsible now. He's taken on the responsibility of being, you know, the chosen one, and he's
yeah.
little subtle things, but nothing grand. To I mean, I guess the biggest change for him was book 4, where it was
Mm.
like, oh, here's Dune. Um,
It's
yeah,
very Dune.
it's so Dune. It's like, okay, Moeed. Yeah, like,
But like,
but
isn't like the way with book 4 is also the one that has the parent do the whole Robin Hood thing, right?
oh yeah.
That part I felt was good. Like Robert Jordan sometimes has like set pieces that work really well. And the
Yeah,
Perrin and gang being basically Robin Hood is cool. The same way
yeah,
that every time they go to Shadar Logoth, it's really cool because Shadar Logoth
yeah,
as a setting is really cool. It
yeah,
has
yeah.
this like weird
I agree.
old school pulp horror, weird fantasy vibe, cosmic horror, weird
I think
fantasy
his
vibe.
books just need to be trimmed, I think is my biggest thing.
Yeah.
He's like one of the
And
few times I'm like, you know what, maybe like I'm sure the TV show's worse, but this is the one time I'm like, well, maybe trimming it down would actually make it better. I don't know, you know?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. I still find it so fascinating that
Excuse me.
his wife was his editor, right? Like Harriet McDougal was his editor, At the same time, she was Glenn Cook's editor for the Black Company books, while editing
Another
Wheel
thing
of
on the
Time.
TBR.
And like, okay, if you haven't read Black Company, which is absolutely brilliant, Glenn Cook
I just know that
is
it's that if you like the soldier parts of the
Malazan.
Malazan, that it's
Yeah.
influenced by it.
Yeah. The thing is, though, Glenn Cook's writing is incredibly sparse, very tight, very sparse, and having to
bit
edit
of a snafu. Hello.
and
again.
having to edit that one at the same time as having to edit Wheel of Time, which is the opposite of sparse.
But Tharno, how about the Horn of Eld? That's the thing. That's a real thing. I kind of want to. I want to. You know.
But I got sidetracked on Wheel of Time, hey. But I'm just saying, like, as I'm reading more classics, I'm reading Cormac McCarthy as well, and going between sci-fi, fantasy, and going to those types of books, like you really see like how vast and different literature can be, and you can enjoy a vast array of different things. So I think that's really cool about literature. Movies, you kind of have like the same 6 genres, and they can be executed really well, but you kind of know what you're getting into. You go for a romantic comedy.
I think David Lynch is a lot different than someone like
David Lynch, yeah. But like, how many David Lynches in the world are there right now? Like, I don't think there's a ton.
Well, not right now.
Yeah.
I was about to say in history they've existed, but
yeah. No, yeah. Twin Peaks is phenomenal, and I also watched Mulholland Drive, which I really liked.
Yeah, Mulholland Drive's good.
Yeah, that's a trip.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's great.
I need to get through Blue Velvet and Lost Highway. Those are my next 2.
Yeah, I own Blue Velvet. I need to get to that at some point.
I think the
I've seen
Circus
Dune,
part
which I
is
guess I can
later.
count with David Lynch, but not a fan of David Lynch's Dune. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I thought
who else's wife was an editor?
5 or so.
George Lucas. The whole reason Star Wars became what it was, because Marcia Lucas is a freaking genius. And she's like, we should probably cut out all this boring political talk and just do this story here. And George's like, yeah, great idea. And the rest is history.
Yeah. I think like sometimes editors are really needed, and sometimes you have authors that start out with like a strong editor and then become so powerful that they don't have to listen to editors anymore, and then suddenly shit gets really bad, and you get like George R. R. Martin not being able to actually finish books because he has no one to tell him to get his shit together and just cut out something.
Bro's not doing it. I don't believe it when I see it. I don't believe.
Yeah, I love that. It's like, yo, George R. R. Martin, he's just not it right now. He's
doing anything else but write that book. And I get it. Like, I get it.
The ending of the show kind of dampened things a little bit, but
But at the same time, that's why my big conspiracy theory is that was the ending, and so he's been trying to rewrite it and change it vastly and just can't. So I think that's ultimately what's holding him up. I think it would have been executed way better in the book, obviously. But I think that the Spark Notes is what the directors had, and then they used it. And people didn't like it, so he's like, oh, I should rewrite it. And he can't figure out how to. This is my hypothesis anyway.
At the end of the day, I don't really care. It's like the whole like George R. R. Martin stuff, I think, is like done, because even if he finishes and I still suspect he will finish Winds of Winter, people will be disappointed by it at this point. Most people will hate it. Yeah, it's been talked to death. It's been like overblown expectations, and people want to hate it at this point because that's gonna work out well. People
are not going to go like, well, has appeared. I think all the George R. R. Martin talk is attracting him.
Yeah. So you say Bloody Mary 3 times. You mentioned Game of Thrones.
George R. R. Martin a couple times. He shows up.
Jimmy just pops up.
Yeah, and it's funny. Yeah, no. Yeah, I don't know. You know what I want to know? I want to know what happens to John Connington. That's a real thing. I want to know what happens to him. He's great in Dances with Dragons. But what are you gonna do? I'm just kind of.
Okay, we got the Dunk and Egg show or whatever now.
I think like Dunk and Egg is
much
easier to adapt though. Like Dunk and Egg.
For sure it is, yeah.
Yeah, because you have like it's already episodic, and you basically have like a buddy
It's
cop
kind of
kind
it's
of
kind of his plot
story.
from the Grey Mouser, if you really think about it. Just
It does,
not quite as
yeah.
horny.
I'm sure they will make it horny. Trust me. I'm sure HBO will make it horny.
Oh, I
HBO
have
doesn't
no
do
doubt.
that.
I'm just saying the stories from what I recall. It's been like 10 years since I read them last, but
The
they're not
stories are
quite as.
not the stories are not as horny. Not that George R. R. Martin is not able to be incredibly horny in creepy ways in the same way that Fritz Lieber was horny in creepy ways sometimes. Like that first Dany chapter in Game of Thrones, the whole like when he describes how she's bathed and how they then perfume her with a drop of perfume on her breasts, on her lips, and on her other lips down below. And I'm like, you're writing. Do you really need to write it this specific way, George? Because
George had
that's
to. You just
that's
don't
that's kind
understand.
of that's kind of creepy in a weird way, in a really weird way. Because
I
you're still
mean,
talking about a kid.
I mean, when you write about like bathing and like child marriage, it's going to be uncomfortable no matter how you spin it.
But he didn't have to let us
That's a good point,
read
Tharnell.
it.
Yeah,
Robin Hood, Robin Hood, Robin Hood.
oh no. Yeah, and then like Derry will pop up and be like,
Excuse me?
um, it's either that or Discworld. She'll pop in. What is going on? With
Yeah,
this
I'm
phone?
on Mort. That's right. Because I've been going publication order, so I already read The
I
Colors of Magic.
I think Pratchett is one of the most rewarding authors when it comes to reading in publication order, because you can really see him figure out what he's trying to do with Discworld, and him sort of like changing, his interests changing over time, and the books changing and Discworld changing with him and his sort of like experiences and his interests, and that is just really fascinating to see.
Also,
And
oh,
yeah,
oh, sorry. Finish your thought, Raph. I was gonna respond to Jimmy. I don't know
no,
if he's still here.
no, I'm basically finished.
I was just gonna say, Jimmy, I actually saw your recent chatting with Nuts, and I'm glad you really enjoyed Power of the Dog, because I thought that was a really good book. He also recently, I think, read Guards for the first time. So
Yeah, I kept watching his series on the Aspect Emperor books because not too many people have discussed them super in depth like he has. So.
I had to trick Audible into allowing me to listen to the Aspect Emperor books, because for whatever reason, European Audible has only the first trilogy and the final book of the Aspect Emperor.
How do you feel
Which
about
is
that?
oh, I mean, Power of the Dog is not it's not a cozy book. We'll just say that it gets pretty vicious at times. Hell, I probably wouldn't. I mean, I probably would have picked it up eventually because I'm always trying to keep up with crime books, but I don't think I would have picked it up as much as I did if not for like Carlos and Yolanda, because aside from like me and like Criminally and like Books on the Bench, who just recently started his YouTube channel, like barely anyone talks about like crime books on YouTube, which is really sad because it's quite popular genre.
Well, if you provide me a list of some of your favorites, I'll try to get into that as well. On top of everything else I'm trying to read.
I'm just not a big fan of crime fiction in general. I know it's a failing, but it just really doesn't grab me that much. It's like I like it when it's sort of like, like a police procedural, then like something like, Cahokia Jazz or Yiddish Policeman's Union or something like that. I like those, but just like crime fiction, I don't know. It's like
So far, I have 2 of R. Scott Baker's ones because I liked Aspect Emperor, so I picked those up. But those are the only crime fiction I've ever bought. So.
Which ones are those? Like the
What
Neuropath
is it
one?
called? It's like the something dogs. Hold on, I have it. It's Neuropath and something like that.
Yeah, I've been hesitant to try Baker
Yeah,
because
Neuropath and Disciple of the Dog is what it's called.
Okay.
One of my I've been hesitant to try Baker because he had an argument with one of my friends years ago, and I
He's
just
very
kinda,
argumentative.
I
Yeah, yeah.
get kind of rubbed the wrong way when authors get super defensive, and I'm like,
I know you said the same thing about Erickson. So
yeah. Though I mean, you know, I read Gardens of the Moon. I was
yeah.
bullied into it eventually.
I think there's a difference though.
No, I
Between the
agree.
two.
I don't think Erickson and Baker are on the same level. I think Baker's a lot worse with it.
I feel like the big difference between Baker, from what I've seen with Baker and Erickson, is that Erickson talks about stuff that frustrates him and so forth on his own platform, which is, you know, his Facebook account, basically.
Yeah. Fair
Baker,
enough.
I have seen Baker go into the comment sections of like blog posts about his writing and argue with people in detail. And that, I think, is the difference. Like,
That's what happened with my
don't-
friend. They were arguing
Yeah.
about M. John Harrison, because M. John Harrison has some pretty heterodox opinions about world building.
I remember that thread. I've seen that. I've read that article and seen the Scott Baker thing. I didn't know the guy he was arguing with is a friend of yours.
Yeah, I haven't talked with him in a while because he kind of has been in hiding on the internet. He's kind of just doing his own thing. But yeah, no, he's kind of on the pro M. John Harrison side, and Baker's like, no, world building is necessary. I don't really know the context of this argument, but I thought the way Baker handled himself was a bit inappropriate. I felt.
The way he did that just like was very sort of like, I don't know. It lacks sort of like the filters that like non-Reddit atheists have.
I was going to say, at least I felt like Erickson showed like some self-awareness with how he approached his essay on characterization, even if I kind of felt it was a bit misguided to do that. But I do think he showed a bit more restraint than Baker. Baker's just like, well, you're wrong. I'm just like, all right.
But I think like the main thing is that Erickson posted that argument, that essay on characterization and on character writing. He posted that on his Facebook page and on his website. So unless you explicitly seek that out, you don't have to deal with that. But Baker went into someone else's thing and started a fight with someone. That's the big difference there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah.
But I do think his books are good, and as someone who's more of a spiritual nature, I like to be challenged. And since the entire Prince of Nothing trilogy is basically like one big criticism of religion, I thought it'd be good to read it. And then Aspect Emperor as well has a lot of that stuff. And if the prose weren't as good as they are, because there's a lot of that, plus just a lot of sexual stuff that's uncomfortable throughout all of it. And if it was any lesser writer, I would have dropped it because it's just a bit much at times. And I don't think I could have sat through it if it was anybody else, but he made me sit through it. So that has to be something, because I can only tolerate so much of that kind of stuff. So
no, I mean, I won't pretend my friend is like perfect either. I thought his Game of Thrones review was quite misguided, because there's one part where he literally is like, oh, well, men got raped more in war than women did. And I just kind of rolled my eyes at that. I'm like, buddy, that's a fucking stretch and a half to pull that out in a Game of Thrones. You're just finding reasons to dislike it at this point.
No, he's got a point there. He definitely has a point there. I unfortunately I don't remember the name of your friend, but it's fine if you don't want to mention it in public. But like, my point is the fact that so much of like sexual violence in fantasy is
against women.
Is only men assaulting women is very much not what this is about. Is very much not historical, but it's often defended as being historical. So the argument makes sense. Is it the most important thing to criticize George R. R. Martin for? No. Is it still a valid argument? Yes, because it's not just Game of Thrones. It's like everywhere in a lot of like grimdark fantasy. It's usually men raping women, and then everyone going like, yeah, but that's historical. That's how war works. Like, no, sexual violence as a weapon in war is about power, and that means it doesn't actually matter. The gender of the people doesn't matter. Of the victims doesn't matter in that situation. It's about domination and power.
I am a unapologetic defender of A Song of Ice and Fire, so I'm definitely not unbiased when talking about this thing. But I do
Again,
feel that I kind of rolled my eyes at that. I'm like, okay, buddy, you're just finding things to dislike about it at this point.
Yeah.
oh, there's a
I
lot of
mean,
stuff to dislike about A Song of Ice and Fire.
Well,
It's
sure.
it's
No,
just
I'm not saying it's a perfect series. I'm just
it's
saying, like, if you're gonna criticize it, like,
yeah, that's probably the least
pull shit
important
out of your
aspect
ass like
because
that.
that could be used against many a fantasy series, not
I think
just
it's
the Song
And it
of
was
Ice
the
and
same,
Fire.
and it kind of bothered me too, because it's the same kind of like, oh, it's just amoral, grimdark bullshit, and people think that's meaningful. I'm like, no, it's not. And people who think that, I'm sorry, you're just wrong.
Yeah, we've
I
had this
don't
come up
know
a few
about
times in
that.
these streams.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I
No,
think
it's kind of funny. Me and Alex actually had a really interesting conversation
Oh
about
yeah.
this the other night, a few
yeah.
weeks
I
ago
think
when I was in Florida.
I like why it is like the whole like sexual violence thing is brought up with Game of Thrones in particular is that when Game of Thrones kind of blew up, people were very often praising it for its historical accuracy. And George R. Martin said that he's been like heavily influenced by the War of the Roses and all of that kind of stuff. So people were arguing lots of times were arguing that Game of Thrones is superior fantasy because it is more historically accurate, which is a bullshit argument to begin with. But that means that you kind of have to show, if you want to argue against that, you kind of have to show that no, it's actually not very historically accurate. That's kind of the problem with it. Like, it's a good fantasy story. It's very much not historically accurate in any way, shape, or form. So that's why that argument kind of is in there, and why I feel like a lot of people have felt it necessary to point out that the specific depiction of sexual violence against women is a choice and not one that is based in historical accuracy, because that's sort of like the thing that is often brought up in that situation. So it makes sense why it is brought
Yeah.
up. It's not the most important thing to criticize Game of Thrones for, but because a lot of people were holding up the supposed like historical inspirations and so forth, you kind of have to go there at some point.
But don't worry, after you get through 3 books of R. Scott Baker going through the worst things with women, he balances the equation in Aspect Emperor by doing just as bad, if not worse things to men in the second series. So
Yeah,
we
but
have
I'm just kind of
equality
like,
of sexual assault,
my point is, I
Oh,
find his argument about the whole men get raped more in war than women was kind of an ass pull, because it's like, I don't know the history, and I'm not saying I'm smarter than he is. He definitely dwarfs me in intellect. I'm not gonna, and I think he's very insightful fantasy critic. Even if I don't agree with him, he doesn't really like Tolkien stuff. He's very much in that like Michael Moorcock epic poo
yeah.
level of criticism, where he's basically like, oh, it's condescending, yada yada, Merry England. He's basically repeating a lot of the arguments that
Which would explain why he is on M. John Harrison's side.
well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, exactly.
Just to be clear, it's also like I've read that article, I've read that essay by M. John Harrison. M. John Harrison is correct in that specific area. Like, M. John Harrison is a very smart person.
No, I'm not saying. I don't know. I don't really want to jump into the rabbit hole of the Tolkien versus Moorcock. I don't really want to, but that's kind of where that's what I'm getting at. Is kind of
Epic
like,
Oh, yeah,
Pooh is a very good essay, and I'm saying this as someone who really loves Tolkien and Winnie the Pooh.
No bother.
Can do both.
We've
yeah, I
we've
know. I actually
discussed it
have.
before.
I actually have the Veraconium series over here. I was thinking about reading it this year, but I just I didn't get around to it because I've been busy with other books.
But I'm gonna get myself another beer. The one that you should read by M. John Harrison is "The Sunken Land Begins to Rise Again." It's really, really good.
Yeah,
Also
I saw
very
you did a
impressive.
review of that. I'll have to pick that up. I think it's a standalone. But yeah, but my initial point, because I went down the rabbit hole of his name's J.G. Keeley, by the way, and I do recommend reading his reviews. I think they're quite insightful. It's definitely been an influence on me and how I review things. But yeah, I disagree with him very, very much about, well, a good amount of fantasy, and that's fine. I mean, I always say, if you agree with somebody 100% of the time, there's probably something wrong there. You're probably either getting manipulated or that's the same person. disagreement is part of the human experience, obviously. Colton says he didn't hear what Raph said to him. I can't speak today.
Did I say something to you, Colton? Then I also don't remember. There.
Oh yeah, my friend Keeley also didn't really get to Malazan. He thought it was he thought it would be like another generic fantasy, and I'm just like, all right, well, it's okay. I would be curious to hear his thoughts because it isn't really a Tolkien inspired thing. It's more
No, it's definitely. I mean, it's aware of Tolkien, much like Game of Thrones is, but I don't think it's trying to be as a counter to Tolkien as I feel like as Song of Ice and Fire tends to try to be. I mean, because Martin obviously respects Tolkien, but he definitely was trying to but I'm going to do I'm going to not be Tolkien. I'm going to be purposeful in that. But Ericsson's just kind of doing his own thing.
I mean, Erickson has famously written another essay where he talks about the fact that he was not influenced by J.R.R. Tolkien at all, because, the thing with Erickson is that he always talks about all the books he didn't read.
Yeah.
Which famously includes Elric of Melniboné, which he didn't read until after coming up with Anamander Rake.
He's like, oh, well.
Though then again, Keeley is also a Nietzschean, which kind of also which that's a whole other band of worms. But it's
Nietzsche is a very interesting writer.
Yeah, but I find a lot of the people who unironically go like, "Oh, I actually like Nietzsche's philosophy." I find they can be real. How can I put it? Quite. How do I say this without sounding like I'm not insulting people? Let me think for a minute. I can't think of a good way to describe it, actually. Just
yeah. No, Colton, I said okay, sorry.
Snobbish, I think, maybe. I don't know.
Nietzsche's writings do lend themselves to a certain form of elitism. Definitely.
Yes, I find that with Keeley, which is why I kind of disagree with him on that, because I'm also more sympathetic to Christianity, and Nietzsche was trying to find a way to replace Christianity. Now, did it work? I don't know. I don't think so.
I think Nietzsche's useful because I don't think he was able to find one. So I think it's good that he tried to explore it, and I don't think found really an alternative there. So just
Nietzsche's very fascinating for that reason. It's just kind of like,
yeah. I mean, Nietzsche's certainly not a big fan of Christianity.
People who unironically not like Nietzsche can be a bit obnoxious sometimes. Kind of like
I think he's interesting. I like him,
they're above it all, and it's just kind of like that. Just kind of rubs me the wrong way, personally.
I think Nietzsche has the advantage of being one of the few German philosophers who's actually able to write good prose. That is not necessarily something that German. Like most German philosophers are not very good at writing prose. Kant, really bad. Hegel, really bad. Heidegger, even worse.
Colton asks if you like the Pastel City. Have you even read Vericonium? I think that's one you haven't read, if I recall correctly.
I haven't read Vericonium yet. It's on my phone. It's downloaded from Audible. It's on my phone. I just haven't gotten around to it.
So many books, so little time.
I know. It's
the biggest problem for a book lover.
Yeah, it never stops.
Yeah, no, it's let me think. I did read Light from M. John Harrison a few years ago, and thought that was a very impressive novel, even if I didn't fully understand all that was going on throughout the entirety of it. I'm not not very familiar with quantum physics.
Yeah. No, Colton, I haven't read The Pastel City. The one that I mentioned that Britain should read by M. John Harrison was The Sunken Land Begins to Rise Again, which is basically what if Brexit was actually Shadow over Innsmouth?
All right.
Yeah, it's Britain going through it's Britain going through Brexit, but instead of Nazis, the country is slowly taken over by fish people.
Oh man, that's I'll have to read that then. No,
they're still all about conspiracy theories, though. It's really good.
Yeah, I actually yeah, it's just kind of hold on, let me. Yeah, I mean, I'm always curious to read. I think that's the thing Keeley really opened my eyes to, is that there is another world of fantasy that isn't as touched by Tolkien. Well, him and Moorcock definitely did that for me. I always will appreciate that, though I have kind of started to. I still respect him, and I still consider him a good friend. I haven't talked with him in a while, but I've kind of started to like move away a little bit because he really likes the King of Elfland's Daughter, and I ended up reading it this year, and I thought it was just a giant pile of meh. So I'm like, you know what? He might argue his points well, but that might he might not be the authority on all things fantasy, which he's not trying to be, but but yeah, he did point me to Perdido Street Station and Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, so I'll always appreciate him for that.
Well, I have to disagree with you on King of Elfland's Daughter.
In my opinion, I should say. I would like to read it again, but it didn't really pull me. I was kind of just.
I think like what is important about like King of Elfland's Daughter beyond like a lot of other stuff is that I really appreciate it is that very specific aspect of like Britishness, like the way the kingdom is described, and when you have like the councils, the kingdom sort of like the artisans always meeting up and drinking mead and getting hammered and making dumber and dumber choices the more drunk they
but
get.
I read Blood in the Mist in the same month, and I thought that was like much better with like in the Britishness,
Well, that was also like written after King of Elfland's Daughter, right? You have to look at like what comes at what point and who's influenced by whom, right?
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Yeah.
But they definitely deal with like similar themes, so I agree with you there. I just really like Lord Dunsany's specific over-the-top prose. Like he has a very specific over-the-top language style of language that is just really fascinating to me.
Yeah, Biggest Bad QM says he held in the original copies.
Biggest Bad says he held the original handwritten copies, and that's pretty cool.
Biggest was visiting like Dunsany Castle a while ago, I think, which is cool.
Yeah, he was he also lived a hell of a life, Lord.
Absolute like race car driver, all kinds of crazy shit.
Chess player, gun shooter, gun swinging man. He was a hell of a man. Apparently, this is my source here is Extra History, so you can feel free to take this with a grain of salt if you want. But apparently, he got shot during the Troubles, and like a part of his skull got blown out or something like that. And either it was the part of the skull or it was a sash he wore that was buried with Michael Collins, the famous Irish revolutionary. I always thought that was a really cool detail.
That is pretty wild.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Colton, I will get to the Pastel City. Don't worry. It's just a matter of time.
I also always like in history that Teddy Roosevelt took a bullet to the chest and got patched up and finished his speech.
Oh
One of the
yeah,
most
yeah. The
coolest things I've ever heard.
well, let's just say in the list of American presidents, former presidents, and people who wanted to become president, he definitely got like the sort of like easy side of getting shot.
Yeah.
Because there's always Garfield, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually was talking with Aaron Hook the other day. I was on his channel talking about the Mafia video games, and we were kind of joking about a possibility of a Mafia game set in the Troubles, and they pointed out just how much of a absolute clusterfuck that would be. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe that's not a good idea. Because I got a headache just hearing them talk about it.
Yeah, it's complicated. It's very difficult. I highly recommend reading the really good Sacrifice of Fools by Ian MacDonald, or possibly The Broken Land by Ian MacDonald, which is very clearly, well, one of them is explicitly set in Northern Ireland, but with aliens. And the other one is in some place that is not Ireland, but is very much heavily influenced by sort of like the Irish experience, because all of Ian MacDonald's writings are influenced by living in Belfast since like the 1960s or 50s.
Did I say the Troubles earlier when I was talking about Dunsany? I meant the
Yes.
the Irish Revolution. Sorry,
Yeah.
You got mixed up there.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, he didn't
Easter
live that long. He didn't live that long.
Yeah, sorry about that. It got mixed up there. I meant the Easter Rebellion, not the Troubles. Though I do think some of that led to the Troubles because Irish are like, we don't want to be a part of England, but we kind of do. Fun times.
No, most of the Irish don't want to be part of England. That, I think, is the important aspect. There's a lot of like, and I'm not an expert either, right? Like, I'm not an expert on Irish history.
I'm not either.
I feel like most people outside of Ireland are not experts on that subject, and even within Ireland, I feel like a lot of people are not, because it is so messy and complicated. But like, there's a very specific element to your unionists that has a lot of like religion politics in there. It's fucked up, is what it is. But it's interesting to see that Northern Ireland Northern Ireland is still like a colony, basically. Up to a point, being like, well, Irish is definitely a post-colonial experience, of being Northern Irish is a colonial experience still, because and there's like it's a play, I keep forgetting what it's titled, and it has been like a big influence on Guy Gavriel Kay when he wrote Tigana, about the sort of like the taking away of a language, of Irish, of Gaelic as a language, and changing street names and names of places and so forth into English to like fundamentally destroy and take away a culture. And obviously Guy Gavriel Kay deals with that in Tigana when it comes to the magic in Tigana that makes it impossible to actually say the name of the country, Tigana.
Oh, I should note, my friend Raul managed to get a hold of a chapter, or maybe it was a couple chapters, of Daniel Green's notebook. And it was basically like really bad China Mieville fan fiction. I was like, this is not good. So,
which one are you talking about?
It's a new book. Though I've heard the Lawful Times kind of tries to do a China Mieville type of revolutionary thing as well. And well, you read it actually, didn't you? What do you make of this?
I've read the Lawful Times stuff. Yes. I think there's maybe a little China Mieville in there. I think there's a lot of Discworld in there. There's a lot of Abercrombie in there, I would argue.
Oh well.
Another man I still need to get to, along with Guy Gavriel Kay. All the names that I hear, I'm like, one day.
And I thought the first one, Breach of Peace, was a solid novella. Like, I've read far worse. The second and third novellas, because I keep forgetting what the second what it was called, but it's a collection of those two novellas. It's still fine. It's very clear that you can see very clearly sort of like his influences. They are very, very open in what he does, and makes it easy to criticize. But then again, writing a book, finishing a book, and publishing it is already a big achievement, right? And as I said, like, I've read far worse, and I think it's easy to criticize.
I thought he gave a pretty good review to Perdido Street Station, and I thought he liked it considerably.
Yeah, I think he did. I think he said that it was like incredibly dark and grim.
He said it was angry, and I'm like, well, I mean, I don't think it's as angry as, like, Iron Council. Then I read it again, and I'm like, oh, I can see where he's coming from. Like, I mean, I think a lot of China Medieval stuff's pretty pissed
I think
off.
it's also important that, like, he did read, like, his review video on Perdido Street Station. Obviously, I don't know if that's the first time he read it. Was much later than his publishing the Lawful Times stuff. So I don't think it was an influence on him there.
Probably not, but what I did read, it was like they were talking about like airships and stuff, and I'm just like, this, and there's just a lot of, like, I mean, I'm not like I'm not like my friend Jason, who's like read a bunch of writing books and is all like, oh, this is how you should do it. But there were just a bunch of like rookie mistakes that even I wouldn't make, as a writer. Like, a lot of exposition, a lot of info dumping through the dialogue. It was just like, oh my God.
But here's the point. None of that is bad. Writing advice is just writing advice. There are no rules to writing good books. They don't exist. And that's like one of the things that pisses me off so much about like a lot of like AuthorTube and writing advice and stuff. It's like, well, these are books that tell you how to write a book to market, to sell it and make a lot of money. That's the goal there. That is not, those are not advice to like how to write a good book.
I'll have to rewatch his review then. It didn't seem that negative, but I'll rewatch it again, Colton. I'll give it a watch. But anyway, sorry, I interrupted you, Raph. What were you getting at?
Yeah, like the idea that there are rules to writing, I think, is like beyond like the actual like rules of like the English language, and even those you can bend and do crazy shit with, like when you're writing in English. Beyond that, there are no rules to writing. You can do whatever the fuck you want, and the idea that there's good ways of writing and bad ways of writing is, I think, already like a really big problem. There's a lot of like really good and angry essays by Ursula K. Le Guin on the subject.
Or what? Maybe I should back up and say rookie mistakes, in my opinion, because I guess I don't know. I'm not an expert in writing, but there's.
Well, I always feel like that too. I mean, I make reviews on YouTube about books because I want to get my thoughts on the ether because I have no friends to talk to about it. But at the same time, it's like I don't write any books, so who am I to critique anything? Like I'm just a consumer.
No, like you can critique books without having to write them. Like the idea that you can only critique things that you could also do yourself is another bullshit idea. That's not how critique works.
Yeah, like Steve Donahue, I don't know if he's written, or well, he writes a bunch of reviews and stuff on his website, but I don't know if he's written any novels or anything. But he's very insightful, I think. Even though he's not a writer himself, even though I think some of his views are just wrong. Like I watched his episode of Chatting with Nuts the other night, and he's like, Cormac McCarthy is bad because he has no plot or characters. I'm like, well, I read Blood Meridian, I've read No Country for Old Men. That has plenty of incident, and there are characters in that book. So I'm sorry, my friend, you're just plain wrong.
Also, you don't have to have
Country has a plot. It's
characters.
meandering, but there's a plot.
Yeah, exactly.
I also there's no rule that says books have to have plot and character. That's not.
Yeah.
That is not written down somewhere. When maybe all of that maybe all of those rules were on that third stone table that Moses brought down from that mountain and smashed.
Yeah, like, off at the people.
That's a nice full circle from previous.
We don't have those rules, so anyone can do whatever they want.
I've
Yeah.
not heard of this. No.
What I found
And isn't
really
that more of just how movies have been made for like, and even then that's another thing of like, that's just like what we've accepted for movies and books. But a lot lately with newer books and stuff, it's just kind of let's do the movie formula in a book, but there's no rule that says it has to be that way.
Yeah, and
You know?
I think like Game of Thrones is a prime example of that. Okay, obviously, George R. R. Martin worked in Hollywood in television in the 1980s, right? And you read Game of Thrones, and you can see that in like the way the chapters are usually, they're focused on one character. They're scripted. They are scripted like TV episodes, basically, and they are, which is obviously probably one of the
I
reasons why it
kind of
was
view Game of
relatively easy
Thrones
to.
more kind of like they're kind of Shakespearean. A lot of people don't really notice the Shakespearean influence because like there's a lot of like big monologues and soliloquies. They're very Shakespearean.
Yeah, but like the structure is you focus on one character. You always end each chapter on a bit of a cliffhanger. Like not always, but like most chapters in Game of Thrones and like in Song of Ice and Fire end on cliffhangers to keep you driving forward. The same way that you see Joe Abercrombie is another one that is heavily influenced by TV because he worked in television as an editor, like as a cutter, and you see the way he describes scenes, the way he writes dialogue is heavily like 90s television influence. It's like the Joss Whedon style of snappy dialogue in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Those have been influenced. I think that of late video games have become a bigger influence on fantasy writing in a lot of ways. What's his face? Brandon Sanderson, I think, is like the prime example of a writer that is not as much influenced by television as he is by video games. The way he choreographs
Like
combat
system.
the magic system, definitely, the world building, definitely, but also like the way he describes, the way he choreographs combat, right? Like you read the battles that like the duels that Logan Ninefinger has in The Blade itself, or like in the first Law stories. They are very much described like you would describe an edit and choreograph a television or movie battle scene, right? When you go to what's his face Brandon Sanderson does. Sorry, as I said, I'm tired, names and so forth. Anyway, when you read how he does that, a lot of like what he has brought to combat in like battle scenes is to actually do them three-dimensional, which is very much sort of the experience of someone who grew up playing first-person shooters, right? You read Mistborn, the way people can fly around. That is someone who has played Quake or Unreal Tournament and has had like teleport platforms and jetpacks in their like visual sort of like vocabulary. Yeah, Half-Life as well. Like that is someone who has that sort of experience and thinks about doing that, because obviously you could always do that with magic, but no one ever thought about it because television didn't actually have a lot of like people flying around and shooting stuff scenes. Video games have that all the time, so it's a different sort of way of framing combat, I think, and that is something that I find fascinating with Sanderson, how that has entered sort of like his vocabulary and the fantasy vocabulary in general in that regard.
Demodric asks Raph, have you started No Life Forsaken? Which I guess he's referring to the new Steven Erikson book. So
yes,
I have started it and I have finished it.
Me and Raph both. I actually pre-ordered it on Kindle, so I was like expecting it on the 28th, but then like I think it was 7 or 8 p.m. it came to my phone, and I was like, wait a second, what? It's the 27th. But I didn't question it. I just opened it up and I started reading it. I spent like the next 5 hours reading. So
yeah, it's great when a book can just like can suck you in. I find that's always the best reading experiences for me.
Yeah, well, I keep looking for that. I mean, I love McCarthy, but I definitely take breaks with that. Whereas like Steven Erikson,
Well, yeah,
like,
his
he could write
books
1,000
can be
pages
really
and
intense.
fly
So
by
I
for
mean,
me. So.
Or what was that Steve said about Philip K. Dick? He's like he couldn't write his way out of a wet paper bag, and I'm like I don't know. He has some. I mean, he's not. I wouldn't call him a great prose stylist if that's what he's saying, but I think there's
You're
a
a
lot of
big
merit.
Philip K. Dick fan, right?
I think there is merit in Philip K. Dick.
But like on the writing thing, I recently read well, it's a couple of months ago because he's very slow at posting a Substack text by Neil Stevenson. You know, a bit of a writer, or so I've heard.
Mhm.
And he made a really interesting and good case on why there are situations where tell is better than show. And I found that really interesting because, you know, it's one of those rules that everyone talks about, like, show, don't tell. It's like, is it though? And he used an example from, I think it was from the Pickwick Papers by, you know, that guy, Charles Dickens. And it's about a scene where Dickens describes the character like having to get on top of the roof of a carriage because it's full inside and so forth. And it is just a very clear description of a scene, and all the humor is inherent in the way that Dickens tells and doesn't show. And Stevenson goes like, well, we could also, if you want to do show don't tell, we have to describe this in all detail, the scene of like how that works, how the carriage looks, how the guy looks, none of that. But like that takes like 20 pages versus 1 page, plus the humor is in the very weird understatement of Dickens' prose in that situation. So it really depends on what you want to do because it works in different ways. And if you go show, don't tell, you basically need to make sure that your audience understands everything. Whereas if you go tell, don't show, you can sort of assume a certain level of knowledge of your audience in some regards because you just go there.
I do think telling can be artful. I mean, one of my favorite tricks of writing I've noticed, and Cormac McCarthy does this a lot, is he'll just randomly in certain points, like in Blood Meridian, there's a part where he introduces the Van Diemen Lander, and he goes and he says that Toadvine notices a tattoo that he has on his I don't remember specifically where, but a tattoo on his body, and he'll see it again in a bathhouse and when he'll be dead the next winter.
Right.
He also does that in The Crossing as well. He says he rides off and he'll never see his family again. I don't know. I don't know what you'd call that, but I think that
that's
I love
foreshadowing with a sledgehammer.
Yes, I love it personally. I think that's I love it. I think that can be really well done, and it's not like a big thing. He doesn't make like a big deal out of it. He'll just drop it in there, and you're just kind of so
he's
like,
very nonchalant about dropping things.
I didn't catch it the first, and I mean I didn't catch it the first time I read Blood Meridian.
I think it's interesting because what it does is it establishes, that goes back to the storytelling thing, right? What it does is it establishes the authorial voice in a lot of ways, because you realize that you're reading a story that has already been finished. The person telling you the story, even though you know it's not a framed narrative or anything of the sorts. You are told a story by someone who already knows how that story is ending. And there's a lot of books that don't have that sort of like authorial voice breaking in and making sort of claims about like what will happen later or whatever, right? Where it feels like you and the author are discovering what is going to happen at the same time. Like you're reading it and events unfold while you are reading them. Whereas if you read something like that, it's like, he'll see that in a bathhouse when he's dying, right?
Yeah.
You know, the story is already over. You're getting told a story. So it makes telling part of the narrative in a way, like part of the book.
That's what always annoys me about like writing groups, you know?
Yeah.
It was like, oh, you should do this. And I'm like, well, I did this thing.
Thanks for the suggestion. I'll do as I please. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Now, I don't want to say it's like all up in the air, but you know, I agree with Raph that I don't think there's like a one specific way you write and that's it, you know. Like
I think telling could also help with depending on how you do it, with like actually being like a mystery. Like if you tell certain things but not explain all of it, because if you show it, then the mystery is gone. But if you just like, I think that like, you know, Lovecraft will kind of like say certain things, but won't go into detail about Agzathoth, the
Yeah.
sleeping god or whatever, So you just kind of have to think about like what does that like entail
Mhm.
completely, and so that kind of leaves it up to you.
I,
Um,
th- I think
even though
what
he's
is
not showing you the
interesting.
whole process of how that all works.
Yeah, I think what is interesting about the whole like show don't tell thing is that it's very much sort of like a storytelling advice that comes once again from like visual media because yeah, you watch the original like movie theater release of Blade Runner with the annoying voiceover, it fucks you up. That is the moment where tell don't show
Is not good.
is bad. Yeah, exactly. But that's a
Skating
visual
up in
medium.
here.
That's a visual medium,
Now
and
you can do it
books
well,
are
like
yeah,
Scorsese does it well in a lot of his
yeah,
movies, and also like Apocalypse Now, I think is a good example of
yeah. But
where
like
narration can work.
it can work, but it's once again these are all techniques and tools. You need to know what you want to do and what you want to achieve, and that is something that no one can actually teach you. And that's kind of the point, right? Like what makes you a good writer is writing a lot and reading a lot. And reading a lot outside of like your personal sort of like preferred genres because it will give you ideas and you'll learn how other people use language and use stuff. And and that's all the rules there are. Now, if you want to actually sell a lot of books, then you have like other considerations. But that's a different thing, right? It's the difference between wanting to be a writer and wanting to be a published author. Those are different things.
Yeah.
And what annoys me so often is like, this is how to write a book. It's like, no, what you're telling me is like, this is how to write a book that might actually get published. Those are like different goals.
Yeah, it's actually also this big nerd thing again, and I imagine Britain won't get to it to a long time, if ever. But with the Star Wars Expanded Universe as well, there's kind of there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff as well. That's the whole other thing. But after New Jedi Order, there's kind of like a directional shift
Mhm.
with certain characters, because there's only a couple authors moving forward who wrote stuff, so they kind of made some decisions. But there's a character named Jason Solo who was a big kind of he's a son of Han and Leia, and he has a big arc in New Jedi Order. And they decide moving forward that he's because they did it first, and of course Disney stole it and didn't do it as well. He turns to the dark side. But after New Jedi Order, there's like a 5-year gap. So they kind of just tell you, oh, he's been exploring a lot of unknown areas of the galaxy. He's learned a lot of things. So it kind of builds up this mystery, and just kind of tells you that he's changed, but you don't actually get to experience him change into this different persona. And a lot of people don't like that because they're like, well, they should have shown us that transition, which is an argument to be made. But I think the inherent lack of the showing kind of adds the mystique of his
Mhm.
direction change. Even though it's an obvious, we're trying to switch his character up from what was originally intended. So
I think what is interesting about that, I feel, is like in a lot of cases where people go like, I need to be shown everything, is also like reduces the intellectual labor that you have to do while consuming media, right? It's like unless you actually show me every single thing, it's not working because otherwise I would actually have to, imagine this and think about it and
Right
work
back.
with yeah, imagine sort of like the stuff that is happening in between and fill in those blanks myself. And that is
yeah,
clearly not that is and I think that is worthwhile because that is, part of like reading or watching a movie or whatever is doing that sort of like labor together with the author. Like every reading, every watching is like a unique experience because you are doing this together with the other
yeah,
people that created that art. And sort of like making the claim that the only valid approach to doing this is by showing everything reduces your basic your participation as audience. Like audience participation is a huge thing, and we're reducing that,
yeah.
we're minimizing that in a lot of ways into just consumption. And I don't necessarily think that's a good thing.
Biggest bad that is Carson Torvald from book 4. It is a picture of them. Yes,
Must be one of those like broken binding paintings
I
or
think
something.
so. I just looked up Karsa Orlong on Google Images, and I found this picture, and I liked it. So
That is one thing I'm looking forward to in my Malazan read
I mean,
along.
if you like
Right.
Conan, you're gonna like Karsa.
That's the thing. No, I'm really curious to see his
He's
take
way
on
different,
like
but
the
also very
Conan like
similar.
archetype.
He's really big into killing children.
Well,
Yeah,
that's not good.
and raping women, at least at the start. He goes through a big arc, but he's also weirdly
He
the same,
definitely
but a
does.
lot different. He's interesting.
Yeah, he definitely is interesting. I think his arc is very interesting, and the way that Erickson sort of like deals with the idea of like the barbarian character, that's really cool.
Yeah, by the end of the series, he still has kind of the same. Like the coolest thing for me is that he goes through like a transition. Like he's not the same by the end of it, but he also by the end of the story still has the same goal, which is to destroy civilization. And
Yeah, it's like who can blame him? Like,
and now we're on the second series, and we keep hearing about him, but we have not seen him yet. So
I
yeah.
do like
He hasn't destroyed civilization yet.
Apparently not. It's been 10 years since the Book of the Fallen ended in this new series. So
apparently he's living outside of the Rujistan,
yeah,
and he is a god, but he doesn't want to be a god, so he just
he's like an
ignores the fact
ascendant.
So
he's
basically,
ascendant.
if Conan became a god, I see.
Well, he doesn't want to be a god.
There's an
Basically.
entire cult, and religion around him. People are praying to
And
him,
he's
but he
like, I don't
doesn't
want that. Go away.
Yeah, he just like fuck you. That's
Yeah. He's like, I don't want your worship. He's like, leave me alone.
yeah. So
So at least that's what people speculate. We haven't actually heard him speak once yet in this new series because he hasn't shown up. So
well, I mean, the first novel in that series is
That
called
sounds
"The
about
God
right
Is Not
if he's a
Willing."
god, because
yeah,
sometimes God's just like, I don't want to talk to you today.
Well, as I said, like the first novel in that series is called "The God Is Not Willing," which is
Yep.
not willing is very much what
Holy
Karsa Orlung
shit.
is all about.
My friend Jason's reading Frankenstein right now. He did volume 1, and it's almost an hour and 20 minutes. So almost 80 freaking minutes long. That is insane.
Yeah, I finished Mysteries Udolpho. I was not a big fan. I can't lie. I don't think it's a bad book. I get why people like it,
That's
but
Anne Radcliffe, right?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
people say the first part's the weakest, and I thought the first part was the strongest to me, and then it just kept kind of dither-dathering
Mm,
for a really long time. I think it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It just was not for me. So, but
yeah.
up next is I think is the monk, the something.
Ooh.
What is it called?
Oh damn it! I
The
was trying to.
Temptations of the Monk
I
or
was trying to
something.
find Jason's Malzahn video. That's what
For
I
my
was looking
gothic
for.
reads.
Mm. I don't
The last
necessarily feel like
temptation.
I don't think Frankenstein. I always have to. I always want to pronounce it in German because obviously it's a German name. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
think
yeah.
it's a. I don't think Frankenstein is a gothic novel as such. I think it gets pulled into that because of
Yeah,
the time it was written in, but it feels different from like what you get from like gothic stories, like from your Anne Radcliffe's, from your Castle
yeah.
of Otranto, whatever stuff.
It also is like, I mean, people also get angry and debate this, but it's also kind of a sci-fi story because it's using science to,
Hmm.
do something that's not possible. So
It is that. It's also just like a very political story in a lot of ways that people also kind of misunderstand. Whereas like, well, you look at what people like Mary Shelley and Percy Shelley and Lord Byron were like dealing with and like talking about at that time. Those were like very angry people. They were very unhappy with like Britain and the Industrial Revolution and all kinds of other stuff, right?
Oh, I was about to go like, up me? What did I do? Yeah, you're talking about the UK. So
I'm
never mind.
talking about the UK, yes.
no, yeah, Mary Shelley's
Well,
angry at you. She saw the future, saw
She
this
saw the
live stream.
future.
It's like, no.
This fucking
Shelley
nerd.
probably would be angry at you, and like I don't think she was a
And I'm
very
like,
happy
you know what I
person.
would say? I'd be like, well, you got fuckboyed by Percy Shelley, so I mean, we gonna do? I mean,
I think it was more complex than that.
I don't know. He seemed to be kind of leading her on a little bit, but I'm
Nah. I think a lot of it, like, obviously, I'm not an expert on Mary Shelley or her mother or her father, but like, it's a very specific sort of like libertarian kind of thing, and like, he was still married to his wife while hooking up with Mary Shelley, well, Mary Godwin at the time, and a lot of this is about breaking rules, like breaking societal norms and stuff, and they were both into that. And when you look at, like, obviously Mary Shelley's mother being, one of the sort of like first like actual feminists, if you want to call it that, and when you look at her father being also like a bit of an anarchist, to put it mildly, there's a lot of like weird, well, not weird, but like a lot of like revolutionary sort of like pushing boundaries kind of thing going on in her life even before,
looking at Vera's video calling the hardest fantasy book of all time. I don't think Gardens of the Moon is the hardest fantasy book I've ever read. I think there are books that are a bit harder to read than Gardens of the Moon. Like,
oh yeah,
I think Black Leopard, Red Wolf kind of is a harder read because it demands much more of you than Gardens of the Moon does, at least in my opinion.
So, I mean, I don't think Gardens of the Moon is hard. I think it's
no,
just a little overwhelming if you like.
That's a good
I
word for it, actually, Alex. It is overwhelming.
like if I kept trashing Wheel of Time. Like if you started with Wheel of Time and jumped to Malazan, I think you'd have a little bit of a rough time. But by like the second or third book, I was pretty much used to it and I was fine. I adjusted.
I think it like it's just different from a lot of like sort of like 90s and the early 2000s fantasy, and I think that makes it sort of interesting to get to. It's not very hard, but it also plays with, well, does something that is hard for a lot of people that have grown up with like the 90s and 2000s sort of like form of fantasy of Brandon Sanderson's and Robert Jordan's, and also, what's his face, George R. Martin, right? The idea that your fantasy world is a closed system and that there is a definite answer to every question that you could potentially have, and that answer is to be found in the book. That is a specific thing. It's like, you read Sanderson, yes, the Cosmere is built that way, the same way that a video game is like a closed system, a finite system. Malazan is not that. And if you try to read Malazan the first time with the goal of understanding everything and understanding how the world works and understanding all these other things, it can get absolutely fucking ruinous, because that's not how that book is written. You don't need to understand all of those things.
It's the journey, not the destination. You will eventually understand everything, and it's kind of a leap of faith of trusting Steven Erikson that he will provide those answers, but he also has faith in you that you'll get what you need to get for that particular book and story.
Like, you can just like follow along the story, and you don't need to know all the backstory stuff. That's not important. You follow those people. You find out what's going on in Daruzistan with the bridge burners. You follow Paran while he's making his way across the country to actually finally end up in Daruzistan himself. You follow those people. You follow Tool and Adjunct Lorne and have like those wonderful, incredibly funny, depressing conversations those two have. And just focus on that. You don't need to understand like how the magic works. You don't need to understand.
I still don't completely.
I don't think anyone does.
I'm looking through the comment section of my friend Jason's rather infamous review of Malazan. A lot of people showed up, like Matt and Raph. And hold on, let me see who else showed up. Madison Goodyear was here. So yeah, the video kind of blew
as soon
up.
as Carconis comes out, though, I'm doing a chronological reread of all of it. And I'll be really anal about it. I'll read like book 1 of House of Chains, like after after Gardens of the Moon, and I'll do the whole shebang. I'll make it fit.
Then you realize that the time scale doesn't match up. There is this weird sort of thing between like Path to Ascendancy and Gardens of the Moon, where like somehow time doesn't matter. Time doesn't really work there.
Don't think about it too hard. You'll break your brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or book 5, which is my favorite book of the Malazan Book of the Fallen, Midnight Tides, is technically the first one you read. if you're reading chronological order. So, but you only get like a one sentence where it's like, oh yeah, Emperor Caliban is doing stuff over there. And you're like, oh, if he's still around, then that means this happens first.
I got
So
kind of frustrated when I think Alex told me, and I was kind of just like going like, "Good Lord, what is even the freaking plot?" And he's like, "Oh, you don't get down till like book 3," and I'm like, "Oh, fuck!"
yeah, I mean, you don't get like the real essence of what's going on or an inkling of it until book 3. Yes.
Yes.
I mean, I can say for a fact, at least, you know what book 10 is titled, The Crippled God, who I guess I can say is the
Hey, all I'm saying
antagonist
is,
without
let's not
further
cash money.
progressing anything. But you don't actually meet him till book 3, or at least obviously meet him. He does pop up beforehand, you just wouldn't realize.
Yeah,
So,
there's a scene
yeah,
there's a scene in Gardens of the Moon where Krupp hangs out at is it Mahmoud Crocus's uncle,
right, yeah.
caretaker, whatever. And Krupp hangs out at his place and he reads a scroll. It's about the chaining and
Mhm.
how what's his
That's what
face?
makes rereads fun,
You
is catching
it's
those.
about the chaining and how the god of death couldn't, and not the god of death, like the first sword couldn't attend because and because of that, Hood took his daughter, and it's all in that one text that Krupp reads on the side. You're like, fuck you! You just like explained the whole plot of the entire series to me, and I just didn't know because obviously I haven't read any of these things, and I don't know what the chainings are about, and I don't know what the crippled god is.
But yeah, that it basically like you get an inkling of like the bigger grand picture by book 3. And
Yes.
then but before that, you're just kind of along for the ride. Like book 2 has a plot that you can follow. But in terms of
Yeah.
like what's like when people say like compassion, right? You hear that a lot. But that comes into fruition in a way in book 2 with the character of Felison and trying to make you care about her despite her behavior. But book 3's were very clearly like the end of the
Yeah.
story. That's like the entire point.
Yeah.
So that's just the whole thing of like the kind of grand picture of why people like kind of go, this is the greatest thing ever, is typically because of book 3 and onward, where people, are like, okay, I
Yeah.
get it. I get the whole idea.
I think
For me,
what I
really, what finally
yeah.
synced it for me was Midnight Tides, where I was like, because it was just kind of
Midnight Tides
like
is
a
so
solid
good.
plot beginning to end. And I'm like, I get it. Everything
Yeah.
everything makes sense now. I'm so ready for the rest of it.
Yeah.
So,
Like
um,
for me, what I've always said, like read the Malazan Book of the Fallen as a history book. Because
hmm.
the Malazan Empire exists before this and it will exist after this book. You're just like reading about one specific era in that history. And
It's
there will be
interesting you say
characters.
that because I kind of view a Song of Ice and Fire in a similar way.
I would
Yeah.
say in that way they're similar. They're different in
They
a lot of
No, I
ways.
don't think they're very much similar aside from that, but that's
yeah.
it's interesting
I,
you
I,
say
I
that.
up to a point, yes. I think what happens with Malazan in a way that it doesn't necessarily happen with Song of Ice and Fire, which is much more sort of like closed off once again. It's like there are characters in the Malazan Book of the Fallen that just like wander off the page because they go to like a different continent and this history is about these two continents, so you don't get to hear about them anymore
Yeah.
unless 5 books later someone mentions, oh, that character has died. It's like, okay, there's a whole story that I didn't
And then
get.
you go read Esselmont, you're like, oh, so that's
Yeah.
where that happened. Okay.
Yeah. And that I think is like looking at it through that framework of like this is historiography of a fictional place and not just a story, just not just like a novel in the conventional sense where you have like one specific plot. I think makes it easier because there's a larger sort of like thing happening at the time, which is around the crippled god and everything. But like beyond that, there's all these smaller stories that just happen there because there's like people living lives while this whole big thing is happening around them. And
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. So, like I said earlier, like imagine Tywin just disappears. Game of
yeah,
Thrones is integral with the internal politics.
yeah,
Steven Erikson is focused on the grand scheme of the god scheming of the bigger things happening, but also not just that. It's also the
yeah,
very mundane and the small moments between ordinary people. And sometimes the main
yeah,
characters aren't the most important. Sometimes it's the random side character that gets to do one of the most important things because it's a group effort to do a lot of
yeah,
things.
yeah.
And
I mean
so,
that's yeah.
it's But the plot kind of goes way beyond the political stuff,
I
which
know,
is
right?
why like
I'm just
big
chilling
character kind of
here
just
while
dies
they're
off. Like
talking
he
about
just sits in a
Malazan.
sentence because it's not really about that. So
Which, speaking
I think the
of, I
most
am trying to.
political Erickson gets is Bone Hunters in the original Book of the Fallen, and that's it. So
Well, I was about to say, I am trying to get together a conversation about Gardens of the Moon, and Raph will be involved in it. So I'm just need to
that'll be
get
exciting.
everyone.
Who else are you getting
Um,
on there?
Hopefully Philip Chase and my
Yeah,
friend Zachary Shea. So
that's gonna be really fun. All of you guys, I can't wait. I can't wait to listen to that.
I'm hoping we can get it together because
Yeah,
they're on 3
Like,
different fucking
yeah.
platforms. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my god.
Yeah, I kind of understand. I'm doing a podcast for the Expand Universe because I went for 2 years straight talking about it by myself. I did a initial read and a reread, and with myself talking, and I'm like, I can't do that a third time. So if I'm going to talk about the EU again, it has to be with other people so they can talk and I can shut up. So I made a podcast where the only difference is I'm doing it in publication order. Whereas before I just kind of read whatever I wanted. So, but they all have different time zones, so it's hard to figure that out with them sometimes. But
but just to finish off though the Malazan thing, I think like Gardens of the Moon already does it, right? The story in Gardens of the Moon is about a bunch of friends hanging out in the same pub, trying to get their one friend, like to sober up and get his life back. That has nothing to do with the Malazan Empire. That has nothing to do with anything else. But that's the story. They just accidentally happen to do that while an empire is trying to take over their city.
yes.
Yeah, I'm hoping Deadhouse Gates will sell me on the series because a lot of
I'm
people I've
confident it
talked
will.
to is said that Deadhouse Gates is kind of the make it or break it for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, people claim it's by book 3. I don't think you need to read to book 3 to know whether you'll like it or not. I think 2 is sufficient. 3 is just kind of where you get the big picture, but by 2,
Yeah.
you kind of see some of. I still think
Yeah, that
Deadhouse
was
Gates is probably top 5 books.
yeah, that was the
of
thing
the
that kind
last
of
Book of the
annoyed me
Fallen series.
about Gardens of the Moon. I'm just like, okay, there is a plot, but I'm just like, well, what? This is an epic fantasy, so like, what?
I'll say 2
What's
is
the big?
immediately more straightforward. Like when you begin that book, you're gonna be like, okay,
I'm
yeah,
like, well, what's the conflict? What's going on here? It's a lot of people just running around.
yeah. 2 is a lot more straightforward. Like a lot more.
Two is basically there's a rebellion in 7 cities, which is another continent.
I'm
but,
also really looking forward for when
yeah.
White Wing Dark Star comes out, so I can go get after Raph to finally do the Dark Star trilogy.
Yeah, I love
So-
Gardens of the Moon, but I do think it's the weakest Malazan book. Of
And I mean,
Erickson's.
I know a lot of people are like, it's not really like a typical epic fantasy, and I mean, it's not. I mean, not that I've seen, but it's just kind of.
I was hooked as soon as Krupp showed up.
Yo, Krupp's great.
love
Yo,
Krupp.
I just gotta say, Krupp was like one of the reasons I didn't chuck the book across the room in anger and just quit. Because I'm like, I want to see more about this guy.
I love him just going off at his little things.
Also,
I
there's
just,
like
I think for me the like funniest
Oh.
part was really the conversations between Tool and Lorne. That's sort of like what I really loved.
And Britton, if you loved Krupp, well, when you get to Deadhouse Gates, get ready for a scurrial pust. That's all.
Escrow.
yeah, I
It's
heard he's
amazing
not
as well.
in Deadhouse Gates. I was so disappointed. Like I was so sad.
But don't worry, those 2 characters. I'll say this at the very least, and I won't say.
And they're
There
like,
is
oh, he doesn't come
Mule
back for book
Bowl.
3. I'm like,
But
oh,
Ascarial
you
Pust
fucker.
and Krupp have an
Steven
interaction,
Erickson.
and it's beautiful.
I
That's
will
all
say,
I'll say.
I'm gonna send that guy a strongly worded email on Facebook.
Mule Bowl is one of the best things ever. That's like another thing that I love so much about No Life Forsaken. The alcoholic
opening?
mule.
That's one of the beautiful things about Erickson. I have to go off for a second because this happened to me twice where I had like this euphoria moment in my brain. It happened the first time in Reaper's Gale, where there was like maybe a page and a half of dialogue, and not a single name had been dropped yet. But
Yeah.
just by the writing and by what was being said, I went, "Oh my God, it's T. Holmbug." I just know it is, and I felt amazing. And it happened the same thing in No Life Forsaken. I was in the prologue, and I was like, "Krupp" for a second, but I was like, "No, there's no way this is Krupp." And then the mule came up, and I went, It's
Yeah,
a
this
girl.
girl.
I got so happy.
The whole the funny scene thing with that is, Britton, it's written from the mule's perspective, and the mule is standing there while his like the guy is doing talking and doing stuff and fishing technically, and the mule just really wants to drink wine that is in like one of the amphorae that are lying around. The mule is thinking about like different ways of getting to the to the wine.
I mean,
that amphora.
one of my favorite parts of Gardens of the Moon is when Krupp and the gang are just kind of bumbling around, and then the I think it's the adjunct shows up and just completely wrecks them without too much of a hassle.
Yeah.
Which also kind of irritated me because the adjunct just gets like murdered in like a really inconspicuous way, and I'm just like, oh, I thought she was gonna be like a big deal and all this.
Nah.
Okay.
Adjuncts die a lot. It's a general thing. Adjuncts die a lot, and oftentimes in very stupid, meaningless ways.
Yeah, what is it? She's in like a riot and she just gets stabbed. I'm just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I felt bad for her. I like Lauren.
Yeah.
Rip and dip. She only
Like
had
I
one
thought she was
book.
gonna
but
go like
I
on
liked
a
it.
journey and then she gets murdered. I'm just like, this is fucking bullshit, man. God damn it.
It's actually crazy, like hearing you talk about Gardens of the Moon, and then after having finished like the whole thing, you're like, wow, like where they started and where they all end up. It's such
Yeah.
a shift. So
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm just kind of, yeah. So yeah, hopefully, since I'm going to be reading a lot of science fiction in 2026, perhaps I'll see if I can sneak in Rejoice, a Knife to the Heart, and see if I enjoy that any. We'll see.
That's a difficult book, I think. It's sort of like Erickson's, like, look, you clearly didn't get my message in Malazan Book of the Fallen, so here's it as clearly spelled out as I can.
Oh, so will I learn the meaning of compassion in Rejoice?
Yeah, kind of.
I was just kidding.
I think
I thought Alex was going to say something.
hello, am I dead?
Oh, no, you're no. I can hear you now. You just kind of went silent for a
I
minute.
think you dropped off for a
Oh
second
yeah.
there.
Yeah, I died. Okay. I was saying with Malazan, genuinely, like I know the compassion thing is like a big thing that's thrown around with all the YouTubers, but like I don't think I've seen a better series to kind of really help you empathize with everyone that you meet than Malazan, because genuinely, like, and it really does require also Esamont, in my opinion, because there's a lot of characters that you're gonna get an opinion of, and you're gonna stick to
Yeah.
that opinion until you read Esamont, and you're like, oh, like Teshrin's like my key example
Patron is,
there.
yeah, it's like, oh no, he's just autistic.
But like actually,
he behaves like a massive dick because he doesn't understand human emotions in that situation. He just can't read people, so he follows the rules, even if it's like the dumbest thing he can do.
Isn't that like the wizard guy? I mean,
Yes.
I know it's
Yeah.
real specific, but
yeah, Esamont's prose is so much worse. Like that's something to worry about, but I still like the stories. I'd say I think we were talking about Stephen King earlier. He's a story guy, or a George Lucas. He's not a writer. Is what like
he's
I
not a
think he gets
stylist.
better. Like I
What you
think
mean.
Path to Ascendancy he's a lot better in that series than he is
Yes.
in the novels in the Last Empire.
I think it also depends. I feel like Blood and Bone really works really well. Like the jungle
Yeah,
feels
Blood and Bone.
creepy.
Yeah,
That
Blood and Bone
jungle
and
feels
Scale were
really
massive
creepy.
improvement. I also really liked Orb Scepter Throne. So, and Stonewielder.
And I feel like Path to Ascendancy is fun, especially like the first one. Kellenved's not Kellenved's version, the first
Dancer's
one.
Lament is amazing.
Dancer's Lament is so much fun. It's like that entire story of poor fucking dancer Cotillion being just like frustrated by the insanity of Kellenved. Every single
so
like he's come up with like another dumb thing. Oh gods.
Kelved's just actually insane. Or is he not? We don't know. But he's
yeah,
always
no
got a
one
little
knows.
scheme going.
No one knows.
Demodrek asks, Britton in all caps, what are you reading these days? Well, like I said at the beginning, I'm hoping to finish A Brief History of Seven Killings by my main man from Minnesota, my old pal, Marlon James, which I will say is probably my least favorite book of Marlon James, at least as we're speaking. But that does not mean it's a bad book. This is a astounding piece of literature, I think. Like there's one moment in here in specific. I know Raph will probably know what I'm talking about. That really, and I don't know if it was just because of the audio book performance of that sequence, but that was really freaking haunting. So this will definitely be on my honorable mentions of the year when I eventually make that video. But I do find it kind of falls into the trap of being a little too ambitious for its own good. But I can't help but appreciate Marlon James for trying. This is a really fascinating. It's not an easy read. I do recommend getting the audiobook for it because I do think it adds to the Also, they really get the patois very well. I won't say too much more, but I'm hoping to finish it soon and then get to Pale Fire. And then hoping to read Train Dreams by Dennis Johnson, who I've wanted to read for a really long time. I've heard him be compared to Cormac McCarthy, and I'm like, oh, I always want more Cormac McCarthy adjacent writers in my life. That's always a good thing. And then She Rides Shotgun by Jordan Harper, which is a crime novel. And then I'm hoping to start Ascender by Jeff Lemire for my Year of Lemire read for November. So yeah, I'm going to be a little busy.
Yeah. All right, guys, I'm probably going to quit because it is midnight out here in the very rainy north, center of Germany.
Well, if you're tired, bro, you go. Get to sleep, my friend.
Yeah, it's like it's past midnight. It's getting late.
Nice talking.
Yeah, of course.
It's always fun, Raph.
Yeah, even if Alex and me just take over and just yell at you about Malazan for hours,
and I'm just sitting there like,
sure, yeah. One day you'll bask in it with us. We'll be back on here with you, like, oh my god, I just read this. Guys, you were right the whole time. So.
One day you will understand why mules are such amazing creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be red pilled on Malazan at some point. We'll see.
And of course, you will worship Nub, King of Kings.
Right. I still don't know what that has to do with anything. That was the most confusing part of No Life Forsaken.
I think it's just like a metaphor for how the Empire is run and how the people thinking they are in charge may not actually be in charge, kind of thing.
Maybe. I was just like, what has this guy got to do with anything? He does nothing throughout the whole book.
Well, he farts a lot.
Yeah, that's true. Watch it be some big important thing in the last two. We'll see.
No, I just think Erickson loves flying apes.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what else has? What else has?
Probably like an Oz kind of
apes? Thing. The Dark Star trilogy.
Yeah, of course.
Mm.
No, but like the Book are more like I feel like they're like more like Erickson being his take on like Oz, Wizard of Oz, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Wizard of Oz is also referenced in the Dark Tower as well, because I guess Stephen King really likes Wizard of Oz for whatever reason.
Well, Wizard of Oz is like I think definitely part of sort of like the American lexicon in a lot of ways, right? Like both the movie and the books have like seeped into like fundamental understandings. A lot of elements of like Wizard of Oz have become sort of like general cultural language. I in a lot of ways, I think. People going like, oh, I guess we're not in Kansas anymore, right? Like that's a saying that has moved beyond people who have actually either watched the movie or seen or read the books.
I've never actually read the books. I've only seen the film, and I love it. It's one of my favorites.
Well, the books are all about how the gold standard is actually good.
Yeah.
Which is one of the most ridiculous things to know, but like L. Frank Baum was pissed off about the idea of leaving the gold standard behind. And that's what the Wizard of Oz is about. And that's why it's Oz, because the Oz is like from the ounce for gold.
Yeah, but it's been time. But seriously, ref, you need to go.
Yeah.
Get your
going.
sleep.
Get your sleep, man.
I'm trying to get some sleep, and yeah, been fun hanging out with you guys. See you
It's
around.
always fun.
Always a pleasure.
Well, now it's
never
just you and
seen
me, Alex. I'll probably
Never
spend
been-
another 10 minutes here before I get off because we've been going on
Okay.
for a while.
Then I can read more Sutri and see what else happens beyond melon sex.
Oh, you haven't even tapped in the vein, my friend. There's a lot more wild adventures in Sutri.
Yeah, there's a nice little small moment that I liked. Sutri's trying to sell this fish, and a guy gives him like $1.44 for it.
You got into the part
And
where he finds the dead baby in the water?
no, I don't think so. That's something to
Okay.
look forward to, I guess. What's his name? The guy he met in prison.
Harrogate?
Harrogate, yeah, he just met back up with him. He was
Oh,
looking
yeah.
for him. Yeah. He's like, you know where Sutri is? Like, no. What? Like, you want to help me fix his car? He's like, no. He's like, oh, you can't fix his car? He's like, I mean, I can, but are you gonna pay me? He's like, I mean, I can. He's like, okay, $2. He's no. How about $1? He goes, $1.50. Done. And I don't even think he finishes fixing the car. He goes off to do something else, and then they tell him where he is, and he heads off. But no, Sutri, before that happens, he's selling a fish for like $1.44. There's like a homeless blind black guy outside who had like this
Oh,
thing
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah,
change,
yeah.
and he gave him 4 cents. Or it wasn't $1.44, it was $1.04, and he gave him 4 of those cents, which I thought was really a nice little thing to do. Because I mean, back then that was quite a bit.
So what else are you reading, Alex, aside from catching up on the new Steven Erikson trilogy?
Let's see. Let's look at my catalog of what I've read, because right now it was Sutri was the main one, and then I took a break. Oh, I've also I guess in general I've been reading as my palate cleansers. I've been reading Discworld, and I've been reading Dresden because I've never read Dresden before, and I wanted to get out of the typical fantasy for a bit. And I heard it was like not like it's no masterpiece or anything, but they're really fun little breathers. So I've been reading the comics and the novels of the Dresden
It
stuff.
won't bamboozle you quite as Malazan does, I imagine.
No. Very, very straightforward. But those are really fun. I really like Dresden as a character. I know people complain about the male gaze, and my defense of that is just that I don't know if I goggle woman as much as he does, but at the same time, the actions are what counts, and he's always very respectful when he's talking to women and when he interacts with them. He just gets some bad thoughts sometimes, sexually. But like I can't police somebody's thoughts. It's how he acts that matters. And he always, when he's actually interacting with women, is very courteous. So that's what I'll take for it. The male gaze. Oh no, I meant I meant gaze as in looking. That's funny though.
I was about to say, I think that's a pun from our old pal,
Yeah,
John.
Bobo. But so I've been enjoying Dresden. I'm on book 3, and as for Discworld, because I was doing it in publication order, I haven't started it yet, but I'm on Mort, which is the one focused on Death's assistant because he goes on holiday or something, is what that one's about. So I'm looking forward to that one. That sounds funny. So far, Death's my favorite character from what I've read in chronological order. So I haven't gotten to Guards yet. So I know that's a favorite of most people's. So, but I don't want to skip ahead to it. So I'm just going as it comes. So what else do I have? I think that's about it. Like I said, I finished The Mysteries of Udolpho. Oh, right. I was reading Twin Peaks or watching. So I also bought The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer. So I read that by Lynch's daughter.
Oh,
I read The Secret History of Twin Peaks by the co-creator of Twin Peaks, Mark Frost. That was very like conspiracy theory book. Like 20% of it had to do with Twin Peaks. It was kind of interesting. I read Bold Ascension by Von Roycraft, a self-published book. So that was pretty good. And that's about what I've been up to so far. So
I keep teasing myself, but again, my sports ball team went a bit late last night. I'm like, oh fuck, this has ruined my reading momentum. So I gotta wait till
you
tomorrow.
mean baseball?
Oh, football, but I did catch the end of the baseball game, which that was pretty crazy actually. I was joking with my dad because the Toronto Blue Jays, the Rush singer and bassist Geddy Lee's a fan of the Blue Jays, and they lost to the Dodgers, and I'm like, oh, I bet Geddy Lee was madder than a motherfucker, man. Yeah, I remember you last week getting sad about that. Sorry, man, Demodrak. I'm kind of a lazy Rangers fan. if I could, I just don't. I never could get into watching baseball.
So
Oh, is he?
Steven Erickson was sad last night then.
I'm sometimes I sometimes forget that Steven Erickson is Canadian.
Yeah.
He's like, oh,
Yeah,
it's
it's crazy.
oh yeah, read my book, Malzeni.
He doesn't talk like that.
I know he doesn't talk like that. I'm just fucking around.
I wish all Canadians talk like that though. The world would be a happier place. I think I remember. Have you ever seen Brother Bear, the Disney movie?
Oh yeah, a long time ago.
I love
That
those
was a
two
weird
deer.
ass movie.
Yeah, it's a very heartfelt movie though. But I love the two elks or whatever they are. Like, hey, what do you mean, eh? You turned to a bear, eh? Or whatever they're amazing.
Yeah, it's been a long ass
Sounds
time.
pretty weird, eh? Yeah. Uh,
I always think of South Park. Look
yeah,
at
yeah.
him. I'm not your
Blame
friend,
Canada.
buddy.
Blame Canada.
Yeah, no. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing a Malzahn chat so I can just kind of troll for like about an hour and a half about like.
Yeah.
Oh, so
It'll be fun
Braun
though.
decides to turn against because he was banging a thick lady. Oh, okay. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, what would you do?
I don't know. That's a good point.
Exactly. We're not in that situation. You'd probably fold. I'd probably fold.
Hey,
It's
I'm
a-
not. I'm not saying. Hey, I'm
hey.
not discriminating.
Oh, we all say
I
one thing
own.
in a moment.
John, I own Blue Velvet. I just haven't watched it yet. I know. I have no excuse whatsoever. I watched Eraserhead a few years ago, and that movie's just freaking wild. I mean, if you think Mulholland Drive's crazy, like
Yeah.
Eraserhead is like that was his first movie, and it's just him just going like, here's all the weird shit I can come up with.
Have you seen his short film ABCs? That's the most terrifying thing I've ever seen.
Oh, I
As
don't
scary
I
as
don't
it.
think I have.
I think it's on YouTube. Hold on. Give me a second. I'll find it for you.
I saw his I did see his Quinoa short film, which I think that might be his magnum opus, if you ask me.
ABCs. Lynch. Uh, okay, yeah, it's 34 seconds. No, sorry. It's 4 minutes. But I'll show you the 33 seconds part. Oh, okay, hold on. Here. Hold on a second.
There's also the
Check this
one
out.
his like last short film before he died. Oh, here we go. Oh no, what
Yeah,
is that?
Yeah.
What is this?
Get ready for this. I don't even think this is a horror film.
I'm already off put by this.
RJKLMNOP QRSTUMB WXYZ. Now I've said my ABCs. Tell me what you think of me.
I don't.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that.
No, I don't know either.
I don't know if anyone is supposed to.
But it's scary.
It do be that. It do be that indeed. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's
David Lynch, everybody. The nicest, weirdest man It's no longer
We're
with us.
cooking quinoa.
When you get an idea, it goes through the currents and it becomes a reality, and you shape that reality into a picture. Thanks, David.
Yeah, exactly. I really liked his weather reports he did in the last, like, where he's like, and if you can believe it.
Believe it. Hey guys, it's Friday.
He was on a different level, man. That's all I gotta
Yeah.
say.
Truly a genius. We just couldn't see it until he
Yeah,
passed
no.
away.
Yeah, no. I am probably going to get off now because it's a
Fair
little late.
enough.
And I have some other things I want to do. Alex,
No.
thanks for coming on and hanging out for a bit.
Thanks for inviting me.
I don't know if we're gonna be on next week because this just kind of depends on if Matt is doing his thing, and being the
Sure.
opportunistic YouTuber that I am, I got to take that audience from him while he's gone and away.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm probably gonna get another drink and eat dinner and read a short story for my short story class. So that's gonna be fun.
Fun.
And also
enjoy
start
that.
this freaking Train Dreams book I'm reading with some friends of mine. So there you go.
Train Dreams?
Yeah, Train Dreams. This book.
Oh, well, you talked about that, right? Okay, I forgot
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
All right.
I'm probably gonna have steak this evening. That's what my dad was
Look
like.
at you, steak. How
"Uh,
you gonna cook it?
I generally like it medium rare, so
That's the right answer. Okay.
yep. Anyway, I'm probably gonna get off now. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and well, until next time, which is probably tomorrow, because I'll be putting up our funnily enough, Alex, I think our episode of Britain's Hangout Hour is not this tomorrow, but next week. It's gonna be.
Okay, interesting. I kind of forgot we did that. It was
Where
like
we
a
talk
while
about
ago.
literally everything.
Yeah.
And also his experiences
Right.
of reading Conan, which just I don't know why I'm
Right.
just forever entertained that it's the frog lip that that offended you more than the it's my duty as a white man to save you.
Yeah. Listen, I don't know. I don't know, man. It just really got me. I was like, I am shocked that this is how they're being described. That's crazy.
Anyway, take care, everyone. Until next time.
Bye, everyone.